Cu fața la imagine, domnul.
Microphone. Sorry, but the microphone doesn't work. No. No.
Tomorrow.
Now.
Nu, verde roșu. Scoasă închisă.
So I said congratulations to all the new Jasmine beneficiaries that were selected this year, and welcome to all of you. You have translator, you have simultaneous translator in the languages that are indicated. So there is German, English, Italian and Spanish, and the numbers are indicated over there. And thank you in advance to the interpreters for helping us in this. So this is the 4th year that Jasmine beneficiaries have been selected. And over the year there have been an evolution. In the beginning, Jasmine was only meant for the more mature organizations, and this has changed slightly over the years. And over the years we have added greenfield organizations, and also we opened Jasmine to the banks. And the first banks where you will also hear today was the Bank of Valletta and the Banca di Credito Cooperativo. So today you will also hear the main actors that you will meet during the whole process of Jasmine, being persons from EMN that will speak and that will explain, and also persons from the EIF that will speak to you about the process. And I leave the floor to my colleague Ricardo, if you want to add a word.
Good morning to everybody. I just would like to thank all of you for taking part in this very interesting project. We have received application from very small MFIs, foundations, NGOs, established MFIs and banks. And all this community I think represents the reality of microfinance across Europe. And for us it's very interesting to see this big interest, because my personal view is that microcredit is growing, is becoming even more important in Europe. And maybe it's very important for you to be here and to get through this process to strengthen your ability to provide this important tool. This for sure will help also the difficult times that we all are living. I think we can start with the presentation, and for anything that you need to address, for any problem, any clarification, any more information that you need, please do not hesitate to contact us. You have our contact. And as coordinators of this project, we are happy to give all our support in order to make sure that this activity will be done in the best way possible. Thank you. So the first presentation will be from the rating agencies, the Planet Rating, Microfinance, Microfinance Rating.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Aldo Moauro. I am the Executive Director of Microfinance Rating, one of the two rating agencies that are collaborating within the Jasmine program. Let me introduce my colleague, Edouard Serre from Planet Rating.
Good morning.
We are going to make a presentation about the two main services that we provide within the Jasmine program. And as most of you know, the very first phase of the program is to, for the MFI that is a beneficiary of Jasmine, is to go through an assessment. This assessment or rating is performed by our agencies. We are specialized rating agencies for microfinance. We have more than 10 years of experience in the specific sector of assessing and rating microfinance institutions worldwide. And of course, we are very glad and honored to collaborate within this important program, Jasmine, Technical Assistance Program. So what we wanted to do here is to go through a little bit the process of the assessment that we make, and we try to implement together with the beneficiaries of Jasmine. And the main objective of this assessment is to identify the most important areas of improvement of your organizations. And this is functional to the organization of training and technical assistance activities that are the second phase of the work of the program, which is performed by TA providers in the microfinance sector that you will hear later on during the day. What we're going to do is we go through the methodologies. So the main methodology that we use for microfinance institution assessment according to the standards, the international standards of the industry. But of course, we have to take into consideration the specific features of the European, the Western European and Eastern European microfinance institutions that are the beneficiaries of Jasmine program, and therefore to make some adjustments in order to have a proper picture of what are the priorities on which to focus with the TA and training activities. So as you see in this slide, we would like to show you, first of all, what is the methodology for the ratings, for the microfinance institutional rating or the microfinance institutional assessment. So what are the main dimensions that we have to analyze in each organization, and what kind of indicators, what kind of analysis we do. The second point is to show you what are the adaptations that we do for the Jasmine MFIs. And then we enter into more details into the difference between assessments and ratings. You know that you have the possibility to choose among these two services according to the different needs and different characteristics of your organization. And finally, we look at the process, okay, of the exercise. So the MIR is the microfinance institutional rating. This is the definition, this is the name of the main product that we, specialized rating agencies, provide to microfinance institutions. We have standardized the main domains of this methodology, and you can see them in this slide. So there are 4 main domains that all the rating agencies have to assess in a microfinance institution. And these domains basically are the corporate governance, the operations and credit risk, the financial profile and performance, the responsible practices, and the external threats. So the analysis that we implement is a performance analysis and also risk analysis. So we analyze both performances and risk, the way we do it is also in a dynamic, with a dynamic approach. So we normally consider 3-4 years when the institution is already operating for that lots of time, and we try to analyze in a dynamic way the trends of the performances and of the risk exposure. And for each of these domains, we have, of course, some indicators that we consider, but we always try to put every indicator, quantitative or qualitative, into the context of the institution. The most important evolution in the methodology that have been taken in the last 2 years, I would say, is especially after the crisis of the microfinance sector in some countries, and the evidence that the risk of reputation is an important risk to be analyzed together with the credit risk, the operational risk, is the integration within the microfinance rating methodology of some relevant social risks, and especially the responsible governance, the responsible practices, as you see in the slide. So basically, we are going to analyze if the governance of the institution is aligned with the social mission, if the decision-making of the governance and management is aligned to the social goals of the institution, and if the institution is putting in place responsible practices, and especially client protection principles and and responsible performance in terms of responsible growth, responsible pricing. So you see the word responsible is quite common now, and it is indicating the importance that, of course, the microfinance institution has to be sustainable, but also at the same level it has to operate according to its social mission and with a responsible approach towards the internal and the external clients. So all these areas are the same areas that we analyze in the ratings and in the assessments. So even if an MFI, one of your organization, goes through an assessment in this moment because it is more appropriate for the level of development, the interesting thing is that we are analyzing the same domains, so you can get an opinion from us on exactly the same domains that will be analyzed also in a future rating, for example. So it's a sort of preparation to a rating, and it is anyway an external evaluation that you can use as a professional introduction of your organization with stakeholders like investors or donors or regulators or clients. Let's look briefly every single domain. What are the main sub-areas that we analyze? So for governance and management, of course, we look at the corporate governance structure, the board of directors, the composition of the board of directors, the rules that the board of directors have to operate, the balance between the financial and social, the way the board of directors takes decisions according to financial and social objectives, the strategic capacity of the governance and the management, the way you are planning your activities, the way you are projecting your numbers, and the capacity to achieve the goals that you have set. The management, of course, the management is analyzed in terms of quality of the management, capacity, background, organization, and decision taking, the reporting capacity and the way the management interacts with the board of directors. The responsible decision making, again, not just financial and operational objectives, but also objectives which are aligned with the social mission and which are considering responsible practices, like a responsible growth or a responsible pricing. And the mission alignment, so how much is the operational structure and the management policies and procedures aligned to the mission. This is very important, as we have seen in some countries where MFIs evolves and develop, and there is a mission-driven risk. So sometimes the MFI are not able to align their operations to the mission that they have declared. The financial profile includes, of course, the financial performance of the MFI, the institution, in terms of profitability, sustainability, the funding structure. So we look at the source of funding that the organization is managing, and the way you are diversifying your source of funding. And then we look at the ALM, so the main financial risks, asset liability management, both in terms of exposure and in terms of policies and tools that you have in place to monitor, to manage the financial risks. And of course, the solvency, so capital adequacy, the to equity ratio, the way you leverage your capital with financial resources, and the level of exposure that your institution has for operating. The operations and organization. Here we analyze the loan portfolio quality. Of course, the portfolio is analyzed in terms of structure. We look at the level of concentration of your portfolio in some specific product area targets. The portfolio quality, with a detailed analysis of the main reasons behind delinquency or the portfolio at risk. Operations in terms of human resources. So how do you manage your staff? What is your human resource policy? What kind of recruitment process, evaluation process, training processes and policies, incentive schemes. The MIS, of course, this is the heart of the institution, the capacity to inform the management and the governance. So how good is your information system and the reporting system. And of course internal control and audit. This area is very important when your organization is growing and is decentralizing operations, to have a proper internal control, and how much this internal control, internal audit is focused not only on ex post control but also to the risk prevention, to the put in place policies and tools to prevent risks and exposure. Responsible practices, as I was saying, this has been integrated recently into the microfinance methodology. And the client protection principles, I think you have heard about the Smart Campaign client protection principle. There are 7 principles. They are all analyzed one by one, and we are providing an opinion on how the institution is managing the protection of the clientele in terms of prevention of over-indebtedness, in terms of quality of the products, in terms of pricing, transparency, privacy of data, etc. And responsible performance. Again, here we like to see if the institution is considering appropriate objectives in terms of performance, in terms of growth, also in terms of pricing, for example, and that in general the principle is to have an MFI who is of course sustainable and efficient, but at the same time is not passing to the clientele its inefficiencies, and it is not harming the client with, for example, too high prices or too high profit expectations. Okay, here we wanted to show you a little bit the definition also of a social rating. Because as you see, this integration of the responsible practices into the microfinance rating methodology mainly comes from the experience that we have done in social ratings. But social ratings have a different aim than the microfinance rating. While the microfinance rating objective is to provide an opinion on the long-term viability of the institution, the social rating have a different objective, and the objective is to provide an opinion about the capacity of the institution to put its mission into practice, and basically to analyze the mission-driven risk. So how much able is the institution to achieve its social goals? So you see there is quite a clear difference of objective between the two methodologies and the two services. And today, most of the, let's say, best practice microfinance institutions in the world, they tend to have both a microfinance institutional rating and a social rating to show the full picture to the stakeholders, and also to have a full picture for themselves to improve their performances and their situation. And here you see the key questions to each social rating answer. So, does the MFI fulfill its social mission? Is internal control in line with the mission? Is the MFI reaching the target clients? Do the services meet the client needs? Are consumer protection principles respected? And is the MFI responsible towards staff, community, and environment? Okay, so here you can see the difference between the two products, as I was saying. I think I've already discussed this. And maybe I will leave the floor to Edward, who will talk about the main adaptations of these methodologies to the Jasmine beneficiaries.
Thank you, Aldo. Good morning, everybody. So indeed, we have, over the last 10 years, done a lot of ratings in the developing world, and starting to do these ratings in the European Union, requested some adaptations of the methodology. And so for that, indeed, we identified some main aspects that we do need to take into account when doing a rating or an assessment of an MFI in Western Europe, especially a bit more than in Eastern Europe. And also something to take into account is that the diversity of MFIs in Western Europe and Eastern Europe is very important. So you will see that the 4 points that we listed here apply more or less to different kind of MFIs that we have been assessing and that we are going to assess this year. So the first thing is that in fact the business model of microfinance organizations in Western Europe a lot is quite different from the one in the traditional microfinance world. Because some of them, a quite important part of them, is also providing business development services, non-financial services. Not all of them, but I mean, some of you are, that's part of your business model, and you have some revenues which are not from financial services, expenses which are not from financial services. So we do need to take that into account in the assessment. And that means also that for this business model to work in Western Europe, you need to attract often some donations, public funds, to make this non-financial services sustainable. And so that's also taken into account in the methodology. The second point that we take into account is that margins of businesses, of registered businesses in Europe are lower than margins of businesses in the developing world quite often. And as such, interest rates cannot be as high as the developing world, and sometimes you have caps on interest rates. So in terms of profitability analysis, we need to take that into account, how you deal with the interest rate cap. In some countries, not all of them. And also because you have this component of non-financial services, the profitability analysis needs to be done before donations and after donations. So for example, in terms of ratios in the traditional microfinance, now we are using mostly the return on assets before donations, but in the case of Western European MFIs, we also calculate the return on assets after donations, because that's part of your business model, so that's important to take into account. So as I was saying before, many MFIs in Western Europe, not all of them, are dependent on grant funding. So that's when we will analyze the funding strategy and how you diversify your funding sources. We will take that into account much more than in traditional ratings assessments, and also again on the profitability analysis we will take that into account. And also the fourth point is about the specific targeting of MFIs in Western Europe. Quite often the target population are very specific. They can be unemployed, startups, and as such the funds that you attract to be sustainable are funds that are interested to support these populations. And so that's why you will see in the next slide, we also check how you adapt your targeting mechanisms and how you make sure that you reach these populations and you make sure that you really serve them and adapt your products to their needs. We do analyze this also in more detail in these assessments and ratings. And finally, the one last point that is not listed here, but that is quite important, and in fact, since last year, is that indeed the MFIs that we have been assessing last year and this year are smaller than the one and younger than the one we used to assess. And so that requires some adaptation of the methodology. The concepts are the same in terms of governance, in terms of internal controls, internal audits, but we do need to adapt more to the level of maturity of the MFI. For us, we do think it's important to provide you still the guidance about what a mature MFI or an MFI attracting commercial funds should look like, because that's where you are heading. But in the analysis and the way we write the report, it's different. So here we have again this graph where you see the microfinance institutional rating or assessment, the one that we are using for just in MFIs. And on the right, these social outcomes that we put in pink here are those also coming from the social rating. So regarding your targeting and regarding your business development services. When it's relevant for your MFI, we do analyze this also because we think it's important for you to have some information on this to attract funding in the future. So I will leave the floor to Aldo regarding the assessments.
Most of the exercises that we have conducted in these 3 years, which just mean are assessments more than ratings. The assessments, well, we call it institutional diagnostic, I think non-rating assessment or interactive assessment. As I said before, they touch the same domains of ratings, but with a different approach. The approach is more to give inputs to the MFI for an internal work, for improvement, and also to give inputs to TA providers, training providers, to organize and to set the training program according to the main priorities, the main weaknesses that are resulting from the assessment. So the assessments are operational tools, internal operational tools for the MFI to design a roadmap, an action plan for improvement, and for TA providers to orient their effort and their intervention in the right direction. Of course, the assessment is also a preparation for a future rating, is already an important step into the transparency graduation path, as I like to define it. And most of the time, the institution realizes the importance of this tool, and it is giving to the MFI a certain understanding of the discipline on how to report, on how to organize the functions and the policies, and how to order the house. And most of the time, the further step is to go for a full-fledged rating exercise, which is something more adapted for MFIs that want to attract commercial funding, want to introduce themselves in a a very professional way and with a language that investors can better understand, with a more quantitative analysis as well, and with synthetic grades for each area, for each domain, and also a final overall synthetic rating grade, which is giving an idea of the risk profile of the institution, and especially it is allowing the stakeholders to compare this institution with benchmarks or with other institutions. So in the next slide you can see the main features of the three products. We have also put social ratings. So the objective of an assessment or pre-rating is the identification and the provision of an opinion on the main internal weaknesses and external threats, and also the opportunities that are existing for that institution. The rating is more an opinion on the long-term sustainability and creditworthiness of the institution. So the creditworthiness is very central in the concept, because again, an investor wants to understand if that MFI is able to manage a loan or an investment in a proper way and to repay it according to the agreement. The social rating has the objective to provide an opinion on the capacity of the MFI to put the social mission into practice. So to align the operations, the policies, and procedures to the social mission. And the difference in terms of characteristics, so you see the assessment main purpose is to understand the weakness and to improve the performance. The rating main purpose is to compare performance with other actors and help or facilitating or informing the decision on possible investment in the MFI. The references for the assessment are the best practices of microfinance. For the rating are the industry benchmarks and of course the best practices as well. In terms of communication, well, the assessment is used mainly internally or towards selected third parties like TA providers or donors or the board of directors. In the case of rating, there is a rating grade which is standardized. I mean, also the rating agencies, they have a comparability table now, so it is even more standardized than before. And so the grade is communicated to the market for possible potential investment decisions. And the focus of the on-site mission, in the case of the assessment, is provide detailed feedback and experience sharing. In the case of rating is a systematic review of the main risks and make cross-checking and cross-verification of the data in order to check the reliability of the information provided by the institution. Well, again, I think we have already touched these points. I think that it's worth to show a little bit the chain for a rating. So you see here, if we consider the transparency graduation path, no? So an MFI who starts, who is quite new and is starting up operations, and it has mainly to organize and to set a good MIS, a management information system, to inform the management, the governance about the operations, the performances, in order to take good decisions. It is important then to set an internal audit function to reduce the exposure to operational risks. And this is the internal, let's say, activities and internal effort. of course, the external audit is something that represents a very crucial element for the transparency of the institution. So it is an external evaluation of the financial statements. The auditors are checking the compliance of the way the microfinance institution reports its financial situation and the compliance to the law and to the standards of the industry for financial reporting. The benchmarking, so benchmarking is a comparison of the activities and the performances of your organization with the best practices in the industry. So especially the mixed market, I think that you have heard about the mixed market, is the biggest database of microfinance institution, and it provides analysis and benchmarking by peer groups, so by categories, by legal status, by dimension, by methodology, etc. So this is to compare your performances with the best practices. Then we enter into the picture, and so with the rating agency you can get an assessment, as we said, you can get a rating, and you can get a supervision or monitoring. This could be in terms of rating updates or lighter type of monitoring. For example, to confirm the validity of a rating after 6 months, we ask you to provide information of your accounting, or your financial statements, of your portfolio, and we cross-check with the data that we have analyzed during the rating mission. So this is one type of monitoring. There are other possibilities, for example, investors that are contracting us to monitor the performances of rated MFIs.
Maybe one quick word to complement. Really, regarding the rating, our aim is to a little bit predict the future. So it's a quite ambitious, task, because we give a rating that is valid for 1 year and that predicts the risk profile of the MFI. And so, more concretely, what we want to do is to predict the creditworthiness of the MFI and the long-term institutional viability. And so for that, to be able to really predict, we need very standardized methodologies. And so that's what I presented at the beginning. All 4 rating agencies have their standardized methodology, and we agreed on the key factors to consider. That's the qualitative and quantitative factors. And from the MFI, we really need this very standardized information, and otherwise we cannot really do our job of predicting the future based on the past performance. And so that's why we have all these steps, having a good MIS, internal audit, external audits, and benchmarking before doing a rating. Otherwise, we cannot do it properly. And so that's the ideal chain. Of course, sometimes it's not complete. And for example, in Western Europe, the part benchmarking mixed market is not yet here. But with microfinance and finance rating doing some ratings, we started to accumulate quite some data. And so what we will do during the assessment is really to help you identify for each of these steps, the internal ones and also the external audits, what you need to put in place to build this information chain to later get a rating. And so that's why so far we did a lot of assessments for that to help you prepare in the future. Okay. So the last thing we would like to share with you that's quite important for those who have not yet gone through the process is the process to make sure that the preparation is going well and that it's a smooth exercise. And then we will leave quickly the floor to questions, so that it's also for you the opportunity to ask questions. So basically, before the mission, usually it's more than 1 month before the mission, we send you the information requests. So it's a list of data to provide, a list of documents to provide, Of course, sometimes you don't have all of it, but you need to tell us what you have and what you don't have, so that you know, we can select what we will continue to ask you until the mission. And so you have a list of documents and data to provide before the mission, and some documents and data to provide for the mission when we arrive. And during that preparation phase of, you know, depending, I mean, it's 1 month for you, maybe 1 week for us in terms of preparation before the mission, in terms of accumulating mandates. We also send you the agenda, and we agree on the agenda so that, you know, the agenda is fine for everybody. Then the visit of the MFI for the assessments. It's true that usually it's 2 or 3 days. For the ratings or for big organizations, it can be up to 5 days. And during this on-site mission, basically, we start with a presentation session so that all your management staff and board members, if you want, are aware of the process. Then we interview the key managers, key board members, key partners if needed, and we make a field visits to make sure that we understand also your field operations, and that finishes with a debriefing session so that we can really share with you all what we saw during this preparation phase and the mission, because of course we cannot see everything, so it's very important at that stage to share with you what we think, and you can provide us a detailed feedback at that point already. Then we go back to our office, we send you the draft report within 20 days usually. And again, on the draft report you can provide comments that we take into account, and after that basically we have a rating committee, or in many cases it would be an assessment committee that's taking into account your comments, and we finalize the report. And of course in all these steps, what is very important for us is to receive the documents that we ask and that you have, so that, you know, all the steps and the timing can be respected, and it's smooth for everybody. So thank you very much for your attention, and of course if we have time for questions and answers.
Are there questions or comments? Please feel free.
Hello. Thank you very much. My name is Stefanie Lemmermann from the German Microfinance Institute. We're the national network of microfinance institutions in Germany. First of all, thank you very much. I think you're really doing a great job, because I really think it's not so easy with all the adaptations that you made. So we had actually last year 11 MFIs that were assessed. So we kind of know the process now. And we were struggling at the beginning a little bit with the differences, because we had the impression that you actually come from a development context. And we saw the efforts that you made adapting your models to the Western European context. So thank you very much. I would like to highlight again the difference, which you highlighted also, I think, which is very important, especially in Germany. We have a specificity, which is also that we actually do not provide the loans ourselves. So we do not hold the loans in our accounting system, because we're working in cooperation with a bank. So the German MFIs do not actually report the loans they do, but it's reported by the bank. So I think this is also a specificity which might occur in other Western European countries, and I think it's also a challenge actually to assess this or to take stock of this in your reports. So you said that you did some changes to the methodology and to the reports. I also saw some changes, but you also said you might actually adapt them even more to the context. Is there any specific comments that you can make on the specific adaptations that you are doing to MFIs that do not provide loans themselves, for example?
Yeah, quite a good question. information themselves. And so in a way, for example, the indicators in terms of portfolio at risk are well defined in partnership with the bank, and our capacity to really get more indicators and to get the ones that we usually have has been challenged last year because we had only those that were available. So what we can do in that case, and what we ask MFIs if they agree, is that they would share their database of clients. They can hide the names for confidentiality issues. And depending on the loan characteristics, we can help you calculate the usual the portfolio at risk with simple formulas. So I think that's what we will try to do with the MFIs this year in Germany. If they want to share that database, if that's okay. Depending on the law also, what they may do. And also depending on the complexity of the loans, because it can be done, this kind of thing can be done with simple loans all the same, and it can be made. So that's one of the things we would like to do this year. Yeah, because I think one of the main limits of the assessments last year as far as in Germany is that we had some portfolio at risk indicators which were quite simple, but in fact we needed some other indicators like the loss rates, which was not available for the assessment, and typically for rating we would need that. So it's a lot working on the data with the MFI.
Also on the profitability indicators, in that case, depends on the kind of agreement you have with the bank, but in some cases, not specifically the German case, but also other cases where the MFI is not directly issuing the loan, they of course give fund under management to a financial organization or to a bank, so the revenue model could of course should consider the interest rates, which are the income, sometimes are also in form of fees that are paid to the provider, to the financial provider. So the profitability indicators, they have also to consider this part of the income, not just the interest rates. So it really depends on the business model, on the revenue model that you set with your financial partner, and to have a proper calculation of the profitability indicators. So this kind of adjustment has to be considered as well.
I would have a question. From last year, you had the chance also to assess some banks. What do you find? What you can highlight? It is a new exercise. I mean, what is the similarity? What are the differences that you noticed? And is there maybe a process that we are going from a concept of microfinance to the concept of microcredit providers? I don't know, just to have your idea of this.
Well, of course, this is not the first time that we evaluate banks. We have evaluated or rated banks also in other countries, Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, Eastern Europe, so actually, in general, the microfinance sector includes a big variety of typologies of organizations. So you have from the very small NGO to the commercial bank. And therefore our methodology during the years have been improved in order to be enough flexible to consider the differences. You mentioned one point is microcredit versus microfinance. Compared to typically to NGOs where they they are credit-only organizations, so they don't have the they don't provide other financial services than credit. It is quite different analysis than a microfinance organization that collects savings or provides insurance services or other kind of financial services. And we have to consider other indicators to analyze both the performances and the risk. In general, the first observation is if we compare a bank within the Jasmine Group, a bank with a non-bank institution, the main thing that we observe is probably the target is a little bit different. The banks are targeting, let's say, probably a higher level of micro and small enterprises. They are targeting better structured small enterprises, or micro according to the definition in Europe, while other organizations, non-banking institutions, they can also target less structured businesses, or even targeting the immigrants groups, that are less structured, or even startups. The startup as well is another target that sometimes banks are not able to attend completely. And of course, when you have the bank in front of you, the bank has a wider portfolio, which one part is microcredit, and therefore you have to focus on that specific part in your assessment, because here it's a microcredit focused assessment, and you have to be able to identify and to calculate the indicators of that specific part of the portfolio, and not putting everything together in the same box. Well, in terms of structure, organizational structure, of course, the banks, they have a structure which is quite complete and quite structured, especially in terms of compliance, management function, compliance to the law, compliance to the regulator, internal control and risk management. At governance level as well, they are quite well structured. While the other organizations, they of course are not. They don't present the same complexity, because they don't need, for example, to report to the regulator to make some compliance checks according to the law.
Yeah, so indeed banks are much more mature, and in that sense, in the ratings, often the ratings are generally higher because they have more organizational strength. But what's also quite interesting to discuss with the banks is how they see their social mission. Because in fact they do attract public funds if they decide to work. I mean, they might attract public funds if they decide to work in microfinance. And therefore they have to prove that they have an intent indeed to work in the microfinance field with a social intent. And so we also try to see how much this is present, and whether they started to collect some social indicators to show that indeed they attend to unemployed or to startups, for example. And maybe another small thing is, for example, on the profitability, we compare, for example, the return of asset of a bank with their peers, their bank peers first, because in fact the return of assets of banks are usually in fact less high than what we can see in microfinance. Sometimes microfinance can be very high, it can be up to 10% or even more, while a 2% return on asset for a bank is already good. So we have to take that also into account.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments?
Just to reinforce the point, it's Mark Bartoli from Bank of Valletta. We basically undertook a planet rating exercise last year with planet rating. Our experience as a bank was positive because it was a little bit different from the normal Fitch ratings we undertake, particularly because since microfinance rating agencies tend to go potentially more down on the ground, while Fitch remains potentially more at the governance level. It was a very good experience for us because Planet Rating actually dug very, very deep down into our operations. So it was a good experience for us even to see the depth of knowledge and rigor that the exercise does actually undertake. In the afternoon, I'll give you some feelings of how our experience in that particular example went. But just to give that feeling. From a social point of view, yes, potentially, from a bank point of view, there could be more that is done. But it's a little bit of a balancing act because at the end of the day, our mission as a bank is not perfectly in line with the social dimension. I understand microfinance providers are driven by that. Banks are driven, obviously, potentially by shareholders and also your depositors, which are an important point that one needs to take care of. But then on the other hand, when I look at Bank of Valletta and our operations, we're a small local bank based in Malta, and our large market size demands a certain degree of social responsibility, because if we are not, the economy actually sits on our shoulders, so we have to be very diligent on the way we price our products and even on the way we award such products. As a number of you know, the financial crisis did not hit us as a country that badly, basically for the simple reason that the banks, and not just Bank of Valletta, but also the other big banks in Malta, were very risk averse. Potentially in the early 2000s there was criticism for Malta for being so conservative. Today I think it was positive. So yes, we do have a certain degree of social responsibility because the economy sits on our shoulders.
Thank you. Well, if there are no more questions or remarks, we can have a break now. And we start again at 11 o'clock. Thank Okay, we continue now with a presentation from the Microfinance Center, please.
Hello, my name is Aldona Rutkowska. I'm Training and Capacity Building Manager at Microfinance Center in Poland. And this is my colleague Agata Szostek, who is MFC Senior Consultant. As it was mentioned, MFC provides training courses to JASMIE beneficiaries. Up to date, we work with over 50 institutions both in Eastern and Western Europe. This year it will be a group of 30 institutions, and we will work with all of you in four broad areas of expertise, which is good governance, MIS, strategic planning, and risk management. And I will leave the floor to Agata, who will tell you more about the JASMIE project and the Microfinance Center.
Hello, and I think I know a lot of you in the room because I had the occasion to either meet you personally or arrange Skype calls to determine your training needs. So I'll go into a presentation of who Microfinance Center is and why it has the capacity to provide a good quality technical assistance to help you develop microcredit or microfinance in your respective locations. So this is just a map that will show you, a graph that really shows you what Microfinance Center is. It has 70 years, it has been working for 17 years in the field of microfinance and microenterprise. And actually it's one of the biggest networks worldwide when you look at other networks. And it's involved, apart from the part which we interact with you, the capacity building for MFIs, we have other areas of work, which is research, and there are many tools which have been developed for microfinance by our research department. We are very active in financial education, and I also speak in my presentation about that. We support local networks and cooperate with local networks. We do a lot of policy work, and we also facilitate regional network and exchange, mainly through our conference, but also newsletters, etc. As of today, we have about 110 members, practically from all over the world, but mostly concentrated in Europe, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia. So MSc provides open enrollment training courses. It also provides customized in-house trainings for MFIs, and it provides tailor-made counseling services. So this is actually what we do with Jasmine when we try to understand in the best way we can your training needs on basis of assessment and reports set by the rating agencies and on basis of interviews which we conduct with you. We also organize training of trainers so that people locally then can disseminate the knowledge in specific areas of microfinance. So the topics of generally, let's say, the most popular in a way courses, or topics which are of interest to microfinance institutions would be, well, all issues connected with loan underwriting, then portfolio management, of course, risk management, in this credit risk usually the most appreciated, but also other areas of risk, organizational development. We also work in the area of strategic and business planning with MFIs. We work with them improving their financial analysis skill for management purposes. Then human resource management. There's a big area which, when the rating agency had the presentation to talk about social rating, social assessment, and we also are, MSc is one of the members of the Social Performance Task Force. It was one of the first actually networks that started in this new area in a way for microfinance, social performance. So we work a lot with performance management. We also provide training in marketing, in this market research, and new product development. So since 1998, when MSc started the capacity building program, it had, well, we have now developed skills and capacity of more than 5,300 staff of MFIs, and the number of MFIs are over 2,000. So it kind of shows you what kind of experience we have in microfinance. When it comes to Jasmine, as Aldona was saying, we have trained about 50 institutions, yes, and many of the institutions had applied more than once for the TA, which in our perspective, the way we look at it is also that the quality of the TA proved to be very good. It really helped serve their needs and help the institutions develop. This was also said before in the presentations that there are various types of institutions that participate, are beneficiaries of Jasmine. So foundation, NGOs, we have cooperatives, we have credit unions, banks, and also government agencies. So it's a big mix of various business models, but also stages of development. And what has been, what happened also last year and this year, we have institutions that are starting up from scratch, meaning they don't have any micro credit operations yet, setting up the program. And we're actually helping them develop policy and procedures and kind of opening their eyes what should be done and how to do it in the best way for them. So as as I said, startup organizations. We have also existing organizations that have underdeveloped systems and structures, which are usually recognized by the assessment, and we work in those areas. We have organizations that have been in the market for some while, but they want now to develop and enter new markets. For instance, there's a big group of the credit unions in Romania, which now are consolidating and wanting to develop. They have been working in their environment for a long time, but now they want to grow, which is a very good thing. And we really are happy that so many of them have applied for Jasmine. We also work with well-developed organizations that only aim at improve certain areas. And then we had cases of sophisticated institutions that aim at introducing cutting-edge technologies. So it's a whole spectrum of needs, from the very basic startups to really sophisticated things. I just wanted to show you what kind of trainings we have provided up till now under the project. So as Aldona said, the trainings are grouped in 4 areas. So we have the strategic area, governance, risk management, which is, well, in a way quite popular, and MIS. And from the technical issues, each beneficiary, as I said, is interviewed by us, and by myself actually, and we try to establish what are their needs and agree on the training, specific training to meet those needs. The maximum days of training which you received in each issue of Jasmine is 12 days. So we try, when there's various needs, we try to group them and find the most efficient number of days to meet that need. So sometimes it's really hard for me to understand, and I come back to you with questions, is to see what are your expectations. Are you really looking at refreshing, for instance, your knowledge in a specific area, or are you really wanting to improve your methodology, come up with better tools for your operations in order to, go on with your activity? And this is very, very important for me to understand that, because then I can suggest allocating more or less days to a specific topic. When it comes to dates, well, we try to work out the best dates with you. So we do take into account your organizational, let's say, commitments and, well, vacation time and things like that. But also you must understand that we have to finish the project by the end, practically by the end of November, delivery of the TA services. And, well, this is not such a long period, so we must really work out the best dates with you as quickly as possible. The cost of TA, as you know, is covered, so you don't really have any costs here. And even when it comes to training rooms, facilities, if you don't have those facilities, you don't have offices that provide those facilities, there are monies to cover the training room hire. Also, coffee breaks can be covered. And of course, if there are participants or your staff is located in various cities in the region, there are means to cover the travel accommodation of participants to come together and participate in the training. Before we actually start the training with each institution, there is a training proposal which has to be signed. And at this stage, we already have determined what are the topics, what are the days, let's say, for each topic, time allocated for each topic, and the dates, more or less. Of course, sometimes this date might change, and we are flexible to that if need be, but at the very beginning, we'll try to really work this out for you. And as I said, we don't really have that much time because end of November is the deadline, because we have to submit all the documents later, accounting, etc., to IEF by mid of December. So, from one hand, it looks like a lot of time. From the other, from practice, it can be really squeezing the time by the end of November. Okay.
So now I'll give you some example of specific trainings we had in each area, just to show you what were the needs. So let's say a popular topic, I would say, in a way, and one which really required a lot of attention, was credit officer or loan officer training. It was on credit methodology and delinquency management. That is one of those very important ones, and we do recognize and appreciate that as well. From our experience also, you need to work with your loan officers on a continuing basis in order to keep up their skills. Then there was a training in general on risk management in microfinance and understanding that. Then on loan collection techniques, so when we stand in the face of delinquencies and what should be done. So credit risk management again, so we're really moving in the area of your operations. Developing policies and procedures for risk management. This is something which has been done also in many, let's say, with the assistance of the investment consultants. There has been also examples of reviewing credit scoring methodology and adapting that to meet specific needs. When it comes to MIS, the topics we had was creation of a statistical platform. We looked at helping with portfolio monitoring and looking at the MIS, how it should be adapted in order to produce meaningful reports to the management. IT audit was also provided under the training, and there was advisory provided in the selection of new MIS software platform, where a person has to understand what are the true needs of the institution to be able to see which available platforms will serve best the management. When it comes to strategic planning, the topics were on business planning itself. Then we had a lot of topics connected with strategic marketing. So again, positioning yourselves, understanding who you are, what are the benefits of your product, and then trying to market that in the best efficient way. We also worked on product development and implementation, and for instance, I'm working now with BCC Mediocrati in southern Italy, where we're actually designing now a pilot test for the product we developed, a microcredit product. In strategic planning, it's also social performance management comes under here, so we do a lot of work there, and as we've seen what is the approach of the rating agency, many institutions have recognized that they need to improve their systems and operations in that field in order to really be able to report on their on the changes they provide for the target client, and actually help them with identifying many times the target client in really making it very specific for them and helping them understand who they want to target with what and for what. Yes, what change is that? Is it only new jobs, or is it inclusion of women who have been excluded from financial, or is it for immigrants who are excluded from the mainstream finance? So we do a lot of work in social performance management, and even in this round we already have agreed with some of the beneficiaries to work also in this area. Then we also work in strategic plan development, so helping with strategic planning. And we also had a topic on mobile banking, looking at the strategy for an institution that was looking at developing mobile banking. So these topics were under strategic, let's say, planning area. And when it comes to good governance, the issues we looked at under, among others, I didn't list comprehensively. For instance, training for board members in best practices in microfinance, because this is a topic which, well, everybody finds it sexy but doesn't really understand. It sounds nice, but what does it really mean? And the understanding of whether it's microfinance or microcredit, especially in Western Europe sometimes, is not maybe in line with best practices. So this is a lot of work to be done to change attitudes of people and to provide that knowledge of what actually should be done. So also training of the board of directors, especially when microcredits become a new business line and they don't really understand it and don't understand the benefits it could bring to the target customers and social impact or social benefits it might bring to the institution. So that was one of the areas we worked on. And also we worked a bit on the code of good conduct clauses and customer protection. So that goes under good governance. I would also like to show you some concrete examples of institutions we work with so you can kind of understand the process. And I took the liberty to show the example of WCBA. And we have the representative of WCBA, Matthew Brown, here in the room. That's an institution. It's Welsh Council for Voluntary Action, which doesn't really seem to link with microcredit or microfinance. Anyway, it's an institution that it's a network actually, so which helps its members, the third sector institutions, in all their activities, I would say. And the way, so WCBA discovered at some point that there is a big need, a latent need, I might say, of very small third sector organizations in Wales that now are not able to give donor or grant funding for their activities and have to kind of enter the commercial world and make money in order to sustain themselves. The third, I'm not going into details what is a third sector organization, it might be, because it might take too long at this point, but it is very, well, third sectors are socially driven. They're there for a social purpose. And the commercial activities they conduct is ordered to provide financing for that social, let's say, outcome. So they can be various organizations who are targeted, for instance, at disprivileged groups in the society, but it also might be something else of value for the society. It might be education, it might be childcare, various things. So anyway, when we started last year with the WCBA, they were looking at applying for a tender provided by the Welsh government, and they wanted to apply for that in order to start a microcredit program for very small little third sector organizations. So when I came in, we were developing everything from scratch in order to provide a good application. So we started with developing adequate policies and procedures to manage the microcredit program which they like to establish. And this was also developing delinquency management policy and procedures. Adequate risk management procedures, and then looking there are program as which they are now, which has been created, now is working through a consortium. So it's not only WCBA, but also there are credit unions involved in Wales and another institution that COVIL that also is in the consortium. So it was looking at a bigger outreach in the country. So it was about disseminating the knowledge of risk management about among the partners in the consortium, because all the partners were not really, didn't have any experience in lending to businesses at all. So those were the needs, and the outputs were, so the application was submitted and the tender was won. That's one of the outcomes. We also have, or WCBA has a fully operational manual of loan policies and procedures. Risk assessment was introduced as a concept and risk mitigation strategies were identified. The delinquency policies and procedures were introduced. A post-loan monitoring system was developed. And also we developed recently a loan officer training And it was delivered based on the specific policy and procedures for that institution, for the partners within the consortium. So that's an example of a startup project from scratch, actually. I mean, there was some experience of Matthew and his colleague, but still not in microfinance per se. Then we took the example of Permicro, and we also have the representative of Permicro in the room, and we have been working with Permicro now. We are now in the third round, yes. So Permicro has already been the beneficiary of Jasmine training twice, and I didn't list every trainee because again it might be too long, but just gives you an idea of a developed MFI. They already are functioning and growing, you know, in North Italy, in the, what's the region? It's Milano or Torino?
Torino.
Torino, yes, sorry. Piemonte, yes? Piemonte. That's sure. So, what were they looking at? Just to give you an example. Strengthening microfinance skills on the board of directors. A better separation of governance and operation roles in the organization. They were looking also at developing formal policy and procedures for key areas of operation. They're formalizing strategy and developing a business plan. Strengthening human resources. For, as I said, it's a growing organization. Improve mission understanding throughout the institution. Improve internal communications. Develop a risk management framework and measurement of risk. We're looking also at strengthening the credit risk assessment and review the credit scoring applications they have. We also were looking at better understanding the true levels of their arrears and reasons for credit defaults. And we also were looking at introducing adequate loan provisioning rules. So that's quite a broad spectrum. Because it, as I said, it's a developing institution operational, but still needs to strengthen some of the areas. And the outputs, which I listed, well, we had the board members train in best practices. I can't say, you know, because training is supposed to provide you knowledge, skills, and change of attitude. But it's again, depending on the depth of the training, whether I mean, the most difficult thing to do is the attitude issue, yes? Because this requires more than just knowledge and skills. So we were looking at attitudes with board members. Hopefully they have now a better understanding of best practices. Loan officers have received training in credit methodology and in delinquency management. Also the credit scoring methodology was reviewed. There was a business model review of, in view of what are the market opportunities and, you know, the challenges. There was also training on understanding financial documents, balance sheets, individual income tax, and pay sheets. So there's a better evaluation of the client from the perspective of risk for the institution, but also, one might say, for client protection, so not to over-indemnify the client. Then we worked with them on credit selling communication skills. We looked at risk assessment and related reports and looked what is done, what are the best practices in Europe. So they could find something which could really show them, give them an idea of what they should be working, what would serve their needs in the best way. We had web marketing sessions on, so it was search engine optimization activities, content management, and copywriting issues, so that's for marketing. And then we have the mission understanding, so this goes under social performance. So it was trying to get the institution, all levels of the institution together and working out who actually is the target market, what are we offering them, and for what is the purpose of that, what are we looking at. And also here in this area we discussed the best way to communicate the goals and objectives derived from the mission. So coming up with some measures of how to actually measure what you're doing in that area, and for management purposes to know whether you're on track or not. And business plan drafting, so market analysis, competitor analysis, and a financial plan. Anything else? No. So that was quite an extensive list. So just to show you, even if you are already an active and developed MFI, there are always areas where you could look at improvement and strengthening the systems which are there, or even, looking at, even if you don't want to change what you have, you want your staff to be, in a way, confirmed in what they're doing and making them aware of what are the risks in the area they're operating. So it's always very important to think of, maybe not always you have to work on something new, but it's good to give staff support by training. As I said, it's training of skills, knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So for your staff, it's these three areas you're looking at. So that was an example of a developed MFI. And then I'll show you an example of new technology. We've worked with Patia Credit from Romania. And here, I would say it's a more sophisticated institution. It has been working on the market for, I can't say, but I think it's about 15 years at least. And they have very well developed systems and procedures. So they were looking at entering with new technologies and new products. And we're looking at mobile financial services, so looking at adapting their MIS to support mobile finance services. We give them support on the EU regulations regarding e-money. And then, they want to learn more about operating models, examples from Eastern Europe concerning e-money. And this is something we're actually working in this period with Patia. So what we did in mobile banking, it was background research on the regulation, the basic case studies and detailed explanation of business models out there, and the drivers within the local context. So we have to see whether it makes sense at this time with their business model. And then looking at the landscape of solutions and solutions in the region. We also look at the existing business plan and the strategy, yes, which they have versus ABC. ABC is alternative delivery channels, so mobile banking, using your phone for financial operations. So this, as I said, it's a new technology. I would call it, those cutting-edge technologies. And actually, Patia Credit is having, is very courageous, I would say, in that way, that they are looking at introducing that. Okay, so we'll skip that. Another thing I just wanted to present to you before finishing is financial education. And this, as we saw in the rating and assessment reports, one of the things that they would be looking at when it comes to client protection is looking at client over-indebtedness and responsible policies and practices of microfinance institutions. And in many institutions in Western Europe, it's the business development services. And what we have found, and we might be implementing this round, is that your target population, those excluded people, low-income people in your environment, in your locations, often do not have adequate financial education in order to become borrowers. So at the end of the day, it's working with those low-income people. Financial education helps those people change negative attitudes toward the financial family planning and helps and prepares them in a way to be more proactive in managing their emergencies and taking the right debt decisions. Because at the end of the day, you're looking at providing a good loan for a client that knows how to use it. And it's not putting him into a difficult situation. In order for the client to be able to use the loan, he has to have that basic financial education. So financial education is a big topic in many locations, especially if you look at those really down-market MFIs that work with very specific targets. And MFC does provide, we have packages on financial education and on debt management for local trainers. We train local trainers in order that they provide that in their local communities. So it's not a one-off thing. But the way we operate is the institution provides staff or volunteers whom we train, so later they can repeat the trainings over and over again to their municipalities, to their location or regions. So that's the way financial education is disseminated. So as I said, the benefits are not only to the individuals, it's also for the institutions. So they develop adequate financial services, yes, take into account their needs and the limited understanding of their target clients. And to policymakers, it's also a big thing, especially now. So thank you. Do you have any questions maybe at this point?
If there are no questions or remarks, then we go over to the presentation of Mr. Roberbecker. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stefan Robichler. I'm working in the investment team of microphone. Hello. So hello everybody. My name is Stefan Robichler. I'm working in the investment team who is managing the European Progress Microfinance Facility at the EIF. And obviously it's my turn to show you what we can in addition to just me in terms of funding, in terms of risk taking. My idea was to structure this whole thing just to give you just very few words on the EIF for those amongst you who don't know the institution as a whole yet. Obviously microfinance, some definitions, the way we look at it in the European context, and of course then we will talk about the products that we offer for you, and also some words of course on a potential application. I try to keep that rather short so that we can have a Q&A afterwards. So me and my colleague Ricardo, who is also of course working in the investment team, will be then very happy to answer questions. So ultimately, also the European Investment Fund is a relatively young institution, founded in '94. So we try to be dynamic and really respond to the needs of the market, obviously to the needs of the financial institutions. We do not only microfinance, but also many other things. So we are basically the number one risk developer and strong in risk financing through a number of products. Venture finance, fund management, guarantees, etc. Obviously, we do this across the EU 27, but also in Canada countries. The fund belongs mainly to the European Investment Bank, so we're part of the European Investment Bank group. Also, of course, course, the EU has a certain share, and also some 24 financial institutions, private institutions across Europe. The good thing is that we maintained, despite the crisis and despite the problems across the EU, a AAA rating, which helps obviously a lot for our intermediaries. Obviously, there is no need to explain what microfinance as such is. You're very well aware of that, obviously. The one very important thing still is, probably also know that, but I still want to highlight because it's the definition that basically accompanies us through all the processes. This is the definition of the Commission that a microcredit is a credit below 25,000 euros that supports the development of self-employment and micro-enterprises. And in this context, very important to know that the micro-enterprise is always defined as an enterprise below up to 9 employees, with an annual turnover of less than 2 million, and also with a balance sheet of less than 2 million. Also clear to everyone, probably in this room, is that micro-enterprises are the backbone of the European economy. So a large chunk of all enterprises across the Union are such companies. What is particularly interesting to us is because of the job creation aspect, is there's a relatively high percentage of startups are actually launched by unemployed, and that typically such startups then in turn create 2 jobs. There's obviously a big demand across the Union for microfinance. Some estimations of the Commission are at around 6 billion. So we clearly understand this program, EPMF, as a pilot program, and of course hope for follow-ons, follow-ups. However, everyone understood that microfinances is clearly a growth-creating engine for all of us, for our economy. As we heard already from also previous presentations from rating agencies, etc., is that of course the European European microfinance market is different than the one in the more classic countries, so to say. We do face certain challenges due to different regulations in different countries, due to completely different nature also of financial institutions. We have still a lot of subsidies in this field. We also have, on the other hand, of course, institutions that fully risk price. So you see there's quite a diversity. There's also a certain difference between Eastern and Western Europe in this respect. However, we try to design EPMF in a way that it ensures good outreach to and the necessary flexibility to all of this. The global objectives of the EIF in general is obviously job creation and access to finance. So we have a whole set of programs and products that help us fulfilling this. Maybe more interesting for you is now, and here I would like to emphasize a little bit on the structure of the EPMF, which the EIF is actually managing. So we have altogether some 205 million for all EU 27 that are funded through both the Commission and the European Investment Bank. It's basically a fund that is structured according to Luxembourgish law, a special investment fund, that is then ultimately either risk covering or providing you funding, and you as financial intermediaries, you would then all lend to final beneficiaries, to micro borrowers. So that's a little bit the mechanics. If you look at the full name of the facility, which is called like European Microfinance Facility for Employment and Social Inclusion, Also, the main purposes of the facility are quite clear. So we clearly target this field. This can be done through focus, for instance, on particular target groups. That can be female entrepreneurs, certainly young entrepreneurs, also entrepreneurs that belong to minority groups, all sort of self-employed sole traders, etc. One certainly important aspect is, we heard that also in previous presentations, is that at the end, even that we have not like only 200 million, so to say, but we still try to establish and to create and or contribute to the creation of a microfinance market, especially in those countries where basically you don't find any. Since the beginning, one can also really see and we can confirm that we have actually quite a strong demand. With this 200 million, we try to reach overall until 2020 some 500 million or 50,000 microcredits across the Union. Currently, I mean the program is relatively young, so it was launched at the end of during the course of 2010. Funding was available by the end of 2010. And currently we have some over 30 contracts signed in 16 countries. We have around 10,000 microcredits paid out, which corresponds to 85 million, which also shows that we have a very, very healthy, good average microcredit size. Altogether, the signatures would correspond to commitments already more than 100 million. Interesting for you, basically the key message of this slide is that we work with both, with established institutions, we work with banks, but also very well established microfinance institutions, but also new companies in that field, new financial intermediaries. We also work with public bodies in case, so all of this is possible. The selection criteria are pretty much according to a normal investment process. So of course, we analyze your financial standing. We certainly analyze how much you're committed to microfinance, how much you're committed also to other social and financial objectives, your CSR objectives, etc. And this plus, of course, also the impact in terms of size, the impact in terms of outreach is important to us. Now, the most interesting part, probably, of this presentation is the products. We have, in principle, funded and non-funded products. So we have debt products, equity, and guarantee. And I will just quickly run through these products, and then, as I said, we're happy to answer questions. The most classic funding would be a senior loan. This is typically senior unsecured funding that we, EPMF, would provide to you at a certain price. So all the funded products, they are not for free, but they would be priced according to counterparty risk, according to market risk, and such things. So typically you would receive this funding, and you in this case we do not really expect you to match this funding with own resources. Other products we're going to see, this is the case, here not. We have investment limits across this whole fund structure per country, per MFI. So ultimately we can do up to 9 million per MFI. And yeah, obviously we take counterparty risk in you, and you would then on lend to micro borrowers. Another product is subordinated loan. Sometimes a little bit tricky because obviously one needs to go through a process of having the local regulator also taking an eye on this and approving that. But here we would ask you basically to contribute 50% of the overall portfolio from all sources. There's also something like a risk-shared loan, where we have funding plus the option of sharing risk, so us taking risk on the portfolio. Also here we would ask you to have a minimum contribution of 50%. And the risk shared part is structured in a way that in any case a very first loss would need to be taken by the counterparty, by the financial intermediary, and the rest is shared 50-50 loan by loan. There is also an equity product. This is, of course, EAF can never be a majority shareholder, so we would typically could go up to 1/3 or below. This is also more meant probably for smaller institutions and new institutions. Another interesting thing is, of course, the products we offer under the guarantee envelope. So here, typically, you don't receive any funding. You purely take risk on the portfolio that we pre-agree on the size, on the time frame also, you ramp it up. And there we can take basically 20% of the whole portfolio, and within this 75% of each and every loan. The whole thing works basically that we can cover such risk within a time frame of 6 years. And probably also another important element is that it's completely free of charge, this product. How can you apply? As mentioned before, actually we go through a very normal investment process. We have only a slight difference between the non-funded and the funded products, meaning when you apply for a guarantee, you would need to go through a call process, a EU call process. So you would need to access our website. You will find all sorts of information there. You would need to fill in an application form, send us the respective information we are asking for, and then the process is launched basically, and we conduct our internal analysis. We will propose it to our internal bodies. When we have the green light, we would come to you. We would come for due diligence, on-site due diligence, and again, hope that at the end that the transaction is approved. The difference to the funded products is that there is no call procedure. This means if you're interested, you would just contact me, one of my colleagues, for instance, Ricardo, and we would have a relatively loose exchange of information. We would ask you for information, and you would hopefully send it to us. And there is no formal application process. That's the main difference. So I hope that I could give you some insight of other opportunities for you, for your institutions. And again, we are very happy to receive any questions.
Yeah, there's a question there.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. I would like to know which is the product the most demanded among the ones you presented before in framework of progress?
So far, clearly the guarantee and the senior loan for on the funded side. Probably, probably also because so on the funded side, the senior loan and the guarantee, obviously, for those who want to have risk covered on a portfolio. Probably also due to the relatively easy and straightforward nature of the products.
Maybe I would like to add just one thing relating to the workshop that we are having today on Jasmine. We, during the activity at the IF for the EPMF fund, we are also trying to see how the relationship between Jasmine and EPMF works. And so far we had quite a good experience in the sense that we have some institutions that after doing the process under Jasmine, they applied for the EPMF and they received some funding or guarantees. But also in the other way around, so institutions that apply for EPMF then decide to have Jasmine technical assistance to apply for Jasmine technical assistance. This is very interesting because it shows how these two activities that we are running in parallel are really complementary one to the other, because Jasmine gives us the opportunity, give the opportunity to the institution to understand better their financing needs, but at the same time, when Jasmine is applied after an institution has already received some funding from us, is a very good tool to improve and increase their ability to provide microcredit. So I think this was what I wanted to add, because in this context, in the context of Jasmine, I think it's very interesting to note this relationship between Jasmine and EPMF.
E un bun manager.
I would like to start with a question. Who never heard about the European Code of Good Conduct for Microcredit Provision? Nobody, that's good. Well, as you may know, in 2007, the Commission published a communication on microcredit, and that presented the microcredit as an important tool to support the economy in the European Union. And an important aspect of this communication was to develop the quality of the work and to develop standards in the sector. And it's because of this, or thanks to this, that the Jasmine initiative was created. So you see on the left side, there is a Jasmine, the beneficiaries. You are here beneficiaries today. This is for the selected organizations from Jasmine. But Jasmine offers more than that. There are also workshops that are organized for the entire sector and that are usually organized in the framework of conferences and to which everybody, all the organizations can apply. Then there is also the Jasmine Help Desk, which is an online application, an online form, where you can ask questions on not only on Jasmine, but also on the microcredit, on progress in general, and the questions are answered via internet. Then we have the Code of Good Conduct that was also developed in the frame of Jasmine, and linked to that, the Jasmine Online. I will speak about it in a few minutes. And we are currently working on the monitoring of the Code of Good Conduct. So, but what is the Code of Good Conduct? Well, it's a set of standards in terms of management, governance, risk management, reporting, customer and investor relations that are common to the microcredit sector inside the European Union. And actually, originally, the code was developed for the non-bank microcredit providers, but it has also been adapted to the different sizes and different types of organizations inside the European Union. And it recognizes also that in some countries there are regulations that may exist and that cover certain clauses of the Code of Good Conduct. Also, what it tries to take into account is so the clauses that represent the standards, some of them may not be applicable to an organization because, for example, they are applicable only to what we call large organizations. And in the code, we have defined a large organization as an organization that has more than 7,000 active borrowers per year and more than 70 employees. So we tried to take into account this diversity inside the Union, inside the types of organizations when we developed the code. But why did we do it? Why did we want to develop such a code? Well, it's known inside the European Union, as I said, that there is a diversity in terms of legislation and in terms of institutional and legal frameworks. And also, increasingly, funders are becoming more and more demanding towards the organizations in terms of management and governance and operations of the organizations. We also wanted to have a tool that could support the sector and that would develop a common language not only among the organizations but also between the microcredit and non-bank microcredit organizations and the banks themselves. So we developed then this set of approved standards, but you must know that it's not, these are not new principles. These are all based on existing principles in the sector. And how did we get there? But this document, this code, is not a document that the Commission wrote on her own. We tried to involve an important number of stakeholders. And we started in the very beginning with preparatory workshops to which we invited academici, government, microcredit organizations and so on, because we wanted to have a feeling on what were the important topics and with directions we would have to take and get the ideas, was there first a need of such documents. So after these preparatory workshops and the ideas that we got on which direction we would have to go, we started with the support of the University of Salford to enter into the rework. And the University of Salford started with the analysis of existing frameworks, with what existed in the literature on this topic. And they analyzed more than 30 documents, 30 frameworks about the subjects. Then we organized stakeholder workshops, and many organizations were involved in there. We have, for example, the DMI that was very active, and then Mr. Bliskovsky from Microfond also participated in the workshop. And the idea was, before each workshop, to tackle one subject, and the University of Salford sent proposals for clauses that might be ideas to introduce into the Code of Good Conduct. And this was then the preparation work before the workshops. Then in the workshop, these clauses were discussed one by one to see if they fit. We tried, as I said, to take into account the diversity of organizations, the fact that in some countries there is a legislation, this is taken into account into the code. And in addition to that, there were also online consultations to try to involve a maximum number of organizations. It was not possible to invite all the organizations in the workshops, but their input through the internet surveys were taken into account before entering into the workshops. And it is so that at the end of October 2011, the Code of Good Conduct was published. What we did then with around 14 organizations in the course of 2012 was to have a pilot phase, and then the organizations that were involved in the pilot phase went through a self-assessment. It means that they went through all the clauses of the code and they checked if the different clauses were already applied in their organization, if they intended to apply it during the course of the pilot phase or even later. And what we did during the workshops of the pilot phases was also collect the feedback. And we came then to the conclusions that some of the clauses needed to be reviewed. One or two were removed because not adapted. And at the end of 2012, we ended with the review, with the pilot phase of the code. And in total, there are around 14 clauses that have been reviewed. For some of them, just a word has been changed to be more precise. For others, we have added a little comment to make the clause more clear. So, the Code of Good Conduct is of course intended for the microcredit organizations themselves, but also for the customers themselves. It can be a guarantee for the customer of a microcredit organization that they are treated in a fair and in an ethical way. And also for investors and for funders, it can show that the organization works in a transparent way and according to certain standards in the sector. What can be then the next steps? Because now we have this Code of Good Conduct and there is a lot of interest. Well, the next step now for the organizations that want to implement the Code of Good Conduct is to sign up. There is a sign up and there is the endorsement. The sign up is actually meant for the non-bank microcredit providers. And what does it mean? It means that the organizations will apply the clauses of the code, which is not asked to the banks, because the banks have much more stricter, much more severe rules that go much further than what is in the code. So for the sign up, there will be a self-assessment tool that is delivered, and that will allow to go through each clause and to verify by means of sub-questions if the clause is well applied or not. For some clauses it's very easy, but for other clauses it can be a little bit tricky, and there the self-assessment tool can help to see and to check if the clause is well applied in the organization. The idea for an organization when signing up to the code is that the implementation would be done in 18 months. We have said 18 months because we noticed in the test phase, in the pilot phase, that this is more than enough. The organizations that participated in the pilot declared at the end of the pilot the rate of implementation of the clauses was already 68%, so we think that 18 months is enough to implement. And then once the implementation will be done, there will be a monitoring, which means that the organization will be monitored by an external organization. There will be a coordinator for that will verify the implementation of the code, and that will assess it to say in the end of the verification, yes, the code is applied or not. I come back to that. Then for the banks, we speak more about endorsements, because as I said before, the banks have much more stricter rules, but what it means, endorsement, is that when a bank, for example, goes for it, it means that they recognize the value of the code and that they say to other organizations, we recognize the value and we encourage to adopt the code in your organization. It's a way to support the sector. So this methodology that we are currently working on is actually a logical extension of the code, because as I said, you have this document with a number of clauses, and the methodology we allow to verify in a standard way if the clauses are applied or not. And for each clause there will be a weighting. Some of the clauses are more weighted than others, but we also take into account in this methodology the fact that some clauses cannot be applied in some organizations, and there may be good reasons, because of course if there is legislation in the country, of course that takes precedence on the clause in the code, and then that would not be counted in the total weighting of the clauses. The compliance would be at 80%, meaning that in total you need 80% of points to be considered as applying the code. And then after that, once the organization is ready, there is a monitoring for that. This is an illustration. I don't know if it's readable, but on the first column you have the number of the clause, then you have the clause itself, and then the third column are guiding questions. So the questions that help you to decide, yes, I think I can say that I apply the code, that I apply this clause, yes or not. Then there are comments that complement the clause, and there are also there's also some guidance of documents that you will have to submit that will accompany the clause. So this will be a whole document, and what you don't see on the screen is that you will also see the weighting for each clause, and then the total calculation will be done automatically. That is for the self-assessment, and that is a tool that will be used by the organizations, but later also by the evaluator. They will use it, and they will go through it again by verifying the documents. So this is a little schema to try to make it clear. First, the initial contact is telling the Commission, telling me that you are interested in applying the code and signing up to the code. Then there will the sign-up document. It should be on the website of the Commission. The link is at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. The sign-up document that you can sign, and that declares officially that you want to start to implement the code. You will have at your disposal the self-evaluation tool, the self-assessment tool, which is actually, as you saw, the Excel tool. And then that will help the organization through the process of implementation. You can go back different times. The methodology will also help with indications on which clauses are recommended to be implemented first, and which clauses should be really implemented before you can implement another clause. This will all be included in the methodology. Then when the organizations feel ready with the implementation of the code, it was submitted to the future contractor of the Commission, and then we'll start the external evaluation. So this evaluation or monitoring, well, the objective is a confirmation, an external confirmation that the organization is well applying the code, but it's also a recognition for the organization that has made all these efforts to comply to the code, to implement these clauses, and it will also increase the credibility and the visibility of the organizations that can tell we apply the code of good conduct from the Commission. Then the monitoring itself. So the external evaluator will review the non-applicability of the clauses, because as I said before, it can be that some clauses cannot be applied in an organization because only applicable in large organizations, or not in the business, or because there is a regulation in the country, and so on. So this will be the first check that will be done by the external evaluator. Then they will check the documentation that will accompany the implementation of the code. And then they will start the review of the clauses, also using the self-assessment tool, the same document that will have been used by the organizations during the process. And then at the end there will be a report with recommendations, and if the 80% is reached, then you consider the code as applied, but there may be small changes that need to be done by the organization. So the code is voluntary. We have, according to a study from the EMN, amongst the interviewed organizations, there are around 72% of their interviewed organizations that declared knowing the code. And inside this percentage, I think around 76% declare that they intend to apply the code. You must know that the code it's on a free basis. It's a choice that the organization makes. But it can be that in the future it may become a condition to access progress funds. There is currently a proposal for legislation in which the principles of the code are mentioned as becoming a condition to access these funds from the Commission. The code will be accompanied by an online tool, a secured online tool, which is called Jasmine Online, and which has two objectives. First, complementing the code, but also being an interface tool, a tool that will allow the organizations that have registered to it to be visible on the website of the Commission, and to also provide information to their funders, but also to potential customers about their organization, about the type of business that they are doing. And it can help somebody looking for a microcredit in a specific domain that there is an organization in their area, and the other way around for funders that they are here in this country, in this region, this type of organization. Being on this website will also increase the visibility of the microcredit providers. There will be a secure part and a public part in this application. The secure part will be only for the organizations that have registered and that have gone through the registration process via the Commission. It will be open only to EU microcredit organizations. And also because this tool will allow the organizations to enter their financial data, and the financial data that is recommended in the Code of Good Conduct. And what it will do once the data is entered is produce the reports that are recommended by the code. And also, as we speak about transparency in the code, it will also share information about the organization with the rest of the world. But the organization will have the possibility for some of the data to say, I don't want to share this information, I want to keep it for me, and use Jasmine Online as a tool for themselves, or share the information. Some of the information, for example, for the clauses which are mandatory clauses, then the information will be made public in any case. So, but then the reporting will be generated automatically. What it will also include is a tool for good practice, which is nothing more for an organization than say for this clause or for this topic. We think that we have good practices in our organization, and we use these templates, and we would like to share it with other organizations, and then we have the possibility to put it on Jasmine Online and to share it with the rest of the world. Then there will be also the traditional information. The Jasmine help desk will be moved into Jasmine Online, and then traditional web pages like the events, the links, and so on. So that is the end of my presentation. Are there questions or remarks, please? Yeah.
Did I understand right that the self-assessment tool is now already available on the website? That was the first question. And the second question is, I have the impression that the monitoring of the code of good conduct methodology is quite similar to a rating exercise. Do you think so too, or do you think it's going to be very different from a rating?
To your first question, no, the self-assessment is not yet ready. The methodology is meant to be ready by the end of August, begin September, and then it will be all in one. The sign-up document will be available by the end of June, more or less. And then, yeah, I'm sure there are similarities with the rating, but there are also specificities in the fact that each clause will be weighted. Wait for each clause, that there is this calculation of the total number of points, there is this direct link with the self-assessment, with the code, and that is a specificity from this tool. Thank you.
Sorry. No, as you mentioned before that the microphone participate in this pilot, maybe it's good to have just some view from your side on this experience on this pilot project.
Well, I don't think we are the most representative case because we have been already before joining the pilot, we were rated, we had assessments, we had relations with investors, so most of the parts of the conduct we had already covered. So for us it was mostly to structure all the requirements that an MFI has to follow. There were not any new big issues. It was more interesting to see how different MFIs are throughout Europe, and also to see the big difference between Eastern and Western Europe also. But I think the code is a good start to make things similar.
So you think it should not be too difficult for organizations in general to apply the code in their organizations?
I'm not saying that. It depends on the institution, on the size of the institution. Many of the clauses are really easy, but some of them are really. I mean, I think most of the clauses are easy, but there are a few which would be difficult to achieve.
When we started the pilot phase with the organizations, they made a self-assessment for themselves in the beginning of the pilot phase, and the outcome of the self-assessment was that they thought that at the very beginning around 68% of the clauses were already applied in their organizations, because a lot of clauses are indeed a good stance. Thank you.
Yes, when you talk about external organization, are you talking about monitoring just one time after the self-assessment and then self-monitoring of the organization? Or maybe are you planning to monitor that organization, I mean, during X years or?
So the idea is that first the organization does the self-assessment for itself. When it feels ready, it tells it to the external evaluator, I'm ready. Then the external evaluator goes through the self-assessment, checking the documentation, making maybe visits on site and so on to verify everything. And then there may be remarks in the report, there may be need for small corrections. And once the evaluation is ready, the idea is that the result of the monitoring of the evaluation would be valid for 2 years or 3 years. It's not, it will come out with methodologies, but it will be around this timing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel. Maybe we can proceed with Banco Valletta that will give us some insight of the experience that they had with Jasmine last year. Mark Cicluna Bartoli, that is the head of business development, will present.
Can you hear me? Yeah? There we are. Can you hear me? Yes. Basically, what I'm going to do is share some of the experiences we had on Jeremy. I must admit, at first hand, it was a very positive experience. It was a bit of a new experience as well, because we're a financial intermediary. It was the first time Jasmine was open to financial intermediary, and I had a little bit of convincing to do internally, so that the bank understands the benefits and how to take it forward. But before I go into that area, I just wanted to let you know a little bit who we are, where we operate, and how it becomes relevant to our operations. Basically, this is an outline of my presentation. I'll try and keep it short to give you the opportunity for questions. Or actually, let me just change a little bit the format. If there's something I'm saying you want to question, just stop me and I'll answer the question immediately, so that we can engage whilst I'm presenting. It won't be a single monologue. My outline is Banco Valletta, who are we? A little bit of the context, Maltese SMEs and access to finance. I'll take you through the process of how we went through it and the lessons learned. Let me just give you a little bit of an outline of who we are. Well, basically, the banking sector in Malta, in a way, is dominated by two main players. You have us, who is a local bank. We've been established in Malta for a number of years, actually originating in the previous century. And then through a number of buyouts and shareholders, we ended up as Banco Valletta, who now basically has a market share of around 45% of the market. We share that 45% with HSBC, which from a market positioning is also a very strong player in the market, but we play a little bit of different roles. HSBC in a way is governed, it's an international bank governed by London. The rules that apply in London come down and they're implemented. When you're on the ground, you're giving credit and assistance to enterprises. The whole game is a little bit different. Sometimes there are certain rules and relationships. We work very much on a relationship banking approach, rather than a scorecard kind of approach. We offer all banking services, and from an international presence, as I said, we're very much of a local bank, but we have representative offices here in Brussels. We have in Libya, because of the strong operations of a number of Maltese enterprises in Libya, in Italy, At this point in time, and also Australia, potentially we're looking into moving closer to Europe from an international point of view. Maltese SMEs and access to finance. Well, it's the same across all Europe. 99% of the enterprises are SMEs. If you look at Malta from a micro-enterprise point of view, we're saying around 34% of the enterprises generate private employment within the country, and the average size of the enterprise is around 3 employees, full-time equivalents. Again, they have a large problem of raising capital. The main problems arise from 3 main principles. There's a complete lack of a venture capital market in Malta. There's a, I would say, near absence of a business angel network, and the capital markets are not economically viable. I recently saw a presentation given by Ernst & Young, and I must admit, I pinched the idea because I thought it was really good. This is what we generally view when we're talking about access to finance. So we have the public stock markets, we have the venture capital, we have the bank loans, we have the seed and the early stage, we have business angels, and obviously in the value of that area, we have the entrepreneur, family and friends. If I were to take a snapshot of Malta, Malta looks much more like this, because we do not have the venture capitalists, we don't have the business angels, and really a lot of it is carried by the banks. That is why I was saying in my previous intervention this morning that yes, it's true, we are driven by profit because it is our shareholders who expect it, and we run a number of we manage a large number of depositors' funds. But at the end of the day, there is a social element in our operations, because there's a component over here of startups, which in principle, generally banks don't move into. And what we're doing as a strategy within a bank is, obviously, we're not changing our business model. As you can very well imagine, this is not the time for banks to change business models that worked. It's time to change business models that didn't work. But I must admit, in our case, our business model has worked and served us very well, and the bank holds on to it very strongly. So it's very difficult, even from my point of view, to push the bank to move into the seed phase and value of debt. I think that's a clearly no-go area for the bank. But sometimes there are instruments. We are currently running an instrument which is a Jeremy-funded instrument, which is managed by the European Investment Fund, which has proved to be very positive, and is an opportunity for us as a bank to move a little bit. Potentially this bar, the upper bar that represents banks and guarantees, moves a little bit, teeny-weeny bit, just a few centimeters. It will not move a lot. But that at least increases your catchment, and you can say is a little bit more of a social dimension. Actually, I was talking to some colleagues today, so I was speaking to my CEO, and he was telling me, he keeps pressing me and tells me that SMEs, should we be going there, Mark, he tells me. Because obviously when you start to see the maths, you see that there can be a lot of effort, a lot of resources, small volumes of loans, and if you do the equation from a maths point of view, you're actually making a loss. And that's why my CEO was questioning me. But I was clearly telling him, yes, very well, and I can see your point of view from a profit point of view. I said, but in the longer term, I think these are our future clients. The clients today that are sitting in our corporate finance and, yes, giving us a return, are the ones which approached the bank potentially 15, 20 years ago for a loan of 15,000 euros, which allowed them to buy their first truck and develop their construction business, which may be an area we might not go into today, but, but I'm just giving an example of how microcredit is a valuable business proposition when it is looked in the long term. Bank of Valletta and Jessamine, where did it come from? Well, basically, we understand that there is the high-risk category of micro-enterprises, and this was the argument and the points we present at the end of the day. How do we work? How do we manage to move the bank's approach to come closer to startups and potentially micro-enterprises? One area we do is we've created bridge financing products. Bridge financing products, particularly in DG Regio, the policy of funding enterprises from a DG Regio and structural funds point of view is, we will give you the money, but first you need to spend it. I understand the logic from a DG Regio point of view, but from an SME point of view, he'll tell you, but how do you want me to spend it if I don't have it? That is why I apply for it. So basically, as a bank, what we do is we create bridge financing solutions, which allow the SME to benefit from a loan that allows him to bridge his financing until he manages to source DG Regios, obviously the government of Malta, who is managing that money to be able to implement the project. That was one of our first initiatives. I think this was done around 3-4 years ago. And that was the first step. The second step that evolved was the Jeremy product. The Jeremy product is a revolving financial instrument. I must admit it works excellently because it is a risk-sharing instrument, and the bank and even my credit and risk people accepted it as a working business model and now are implementing it within the bank, and allows the bank to help startups and potentially enterprises that previously the bank would not help, not from a business model point of view. The bank only helps bankable clients. As much as from a personal point of view as Mark, I would like to help certain clients because of their business idea, the bank doesn't work that way. The bank is very clear. Is it bankable? Can it pay its loan off? If it does, then we will fund it. But even in cases where we review business proposals that are bankable and they will be funded, sometimes the bank still does not provide assistance because there is the complete absence of any collateral, which is part of the business banking model. So what Jeremy does is fills that gap where it requires much less collateral. And it has been particularly successful with startups because a large number of the fund is actually startups. So where does Jasmine come into the strategic approach? Well, Jasmine comes in because there is an element of small lending and capacity building, which from a bank point of view, as I said, we're very strong on relationship banking. The scorecard approach is very much used from an approach internally on personal lending, but from a business lending, it's very much relationship banking. My objective of Jasmine as well internally was to look into developing a scorecard internally for small business lending specifically. So that was the strategic approach. If I were to give you sort of where do we stand on micro-lending as a bank, well, the microcredit segment is very small. Out of the total portfolio that we have, around 2% is micro-lending. So when my CEO asks me those questions, I understand why he asks them to me, because when you look at it from a bird's eye view, the component of micro-lending is small. On the other hand, when you look from a total business lending and our clients, that actually composes 42% of our business clients, which is quite considerable when you look at it from that point of view. Yes, the administrative capacity is high, but as I said, the justification for that with my senior management is that the high administrative costs will pay off in the future, long term, not short term. And also there is, when we did some internal analysis on our portfolio, there is a higher default rate when we look at micro-lending versus other forms of lending. There is. So basically, the objective of Jasmine application was to assist the bank in taking more informed and uniform decisions on these high-volume lending. And the scorecard approach was the way we tried to look into and develop it. This is the process that we adopted. It was March 2012 where I convinced management to submit an application and look into it. We submitted our application in April. I must admit the Commission was exceptionally fast. We got an answer towards the end of April. In May, we were informed that Planet Rating was selected as our rating agency, and we started internal discussions. Actually, in May, it took us quite a while. Just a side talk. I must admit, you are all very lucky to be sitting here and hearing this, because we didn't. We were told, hello, Planet Rating is going to give you a call next Monday to start the assessment or rating exercise. And I was going, what? Oh, okay, thank you very much, yeah, we shall start. So please don't discount the fact that you're actually sitting here and hearing all this before, because we didn't have this opportunity. So try and use it to the best of your time, because it helped me. We learned by doing. I didn't have the opportunity to assess what an assessment report is and what a rating report is. And when I went to my management and told them, listen, we're going to be rated, they said, what? We're going to be rated, and it's going to be public? Yes, it's going to be public. You must be joking, they told me. Obviously, I clearly informed the bank, and we had extensive discussions in May, telling them, listen, there is no point in us doing an assessment exercise. We are rated by Fitch. It might as well make sense that we undergo a rating exercise. Obviously, after certain discussions internally, you do understand that any ratings of banks made public affect your cost of funds. So I do appreciate the concern of management, but there was a general agreement that we would go for a rating exercise. It didn't make much sense, to be honest, for us to go for an assessment. So we took that decision. In June, we had extensive discussions with Planet Rating in the compilation of extensive amounts of information, I must admit. It was a very, very rigorous process. I'm not complaining, but don't take it lightly. There's quite a lot of administrative work that needs to be done for Planet Rating to do its professional job, because I must admit it did a very professional job. In June, July as well, Microfinance Center was chosen as the training provider for internal capacity building exercise. So there we were sitting, trying to start this rating exercise and compile huge amounts of information, and Microfinance Center is telling us, okay, so shall we start the training? And I was saying, no, wait. I was hoping my rating exercise would tell me where is best to train. But obviously, with respect to timeframes, I couldn't do that. So we needed to engage with Microfinance immediately and start the process going so we can start designing our training program. July, August was very much focused on Planet Rating. The on-site visit took place at the end of July. It was quite an intense visit, where various meetings with various top-level down to loan officer level, which, as I said earlier this morning, it was quite extensive when we compared it with a Fitch rating. I think the value of it is that when you're doing micro-lending, and I see it from the operations of the bank, this is really at loan officer level. And we see it even when in the operational structure of the bank. It is the loan officers who are sanctioning those small value amounts. It is not top management people at head office. So the approach taken by Planet Rating is perfectly understandable, because that is how we really understand the mechanics of micro-lending. The trepidation of the result that was going to come out from Planet Rating, well, proved positive. I took a risk there. It was my second month in the job with the bank. So if this Planet Rating report came out bad, it wouldn't have looked very good on me. But actually it proved to be quite positive, where we got an overall grade of A-, and the outlook was stable, and we were one of the top 5 rated institutions with Planet Rating. So that proved to be quite positive. Obviously, whilst this was going on, we were also discussing with Microfinance Center on the training options. Generally, as the kind of guy I am, after a training exercise, I'm not very much inclined towards classroom training. I don't find a lot of value in it. Sometimes I'm more into learning by doing. So generally, my discussions with Microfinance Center was, listen, let's develop something out of this training. Let's get something tangible out of it at the end of it. And what the general focus of the training was, hands-on assistance by specialists in micro scorecard development. So what we did is we developed a template scorecard specifically for very small lending. We have it for larger lending, but here the objective of the training was specifically that. We also did a classroom training session for some branch managers. It worked well, but there were some lessons which needed to be learned, which I will share with you, potentially even if it was part of our fault, which I will share with you so that you potentially don't repeat them. So let's go to lessons learned. Well, one of the first one was, regrettably, there wasn't enough time to feed in the lessons learned from the rating exercise into the training. I think it would have been very useful. One thing as well I learned today while I was listening to the presentations was something we missed, is from a training point of view, we could have looked a little bit more into IT. But I don't think we would have had the time to develop it further, because I think I can see today areas of IT we could have improved, but I think it would have taken a lot more than 12 days, just thinking aloud today now, just looking at it from that perspective. Planet Rating came across as very professional in their approach, and also flexible, I must admit, when you consider the fact that we're a bank and they're basically working in Africa and Latin America with microfinance providers. We were a little bit of a different animal for them. So their flexibility in understanding our business model and our approach was also very professional from their end. And a point is, don't underestimate the administrative burden of the information they're going to ask from you. It was quite taxing. Quite taxing. I understood the business model of how they worked and why the information they were asking for. And I must admit I did my utmost to make sure I gave them all the information. But it was quite taxing. Those are lessons learned from a rating exercise point of view. Capacity building. One point I noticed was, if you ask any training provider in the world to be able to provide training experience to 27 countries with different languages, you're not going to find that person. And I must admit, microfinance centers really place in a difficult task to do that. They do it through subcontractors to be able to deliver that service. Mine was easy, mine was English. But if you're going for a specific language within the European community, I clearly appreciate the restrictions one may have to find those specialists. And I must admit, I pushed Microfinance Center quite hard to find the specialist on credit card scoring, and I must admit we found the right guy. He was excellent because he had the academic background, which was something in the bank we didn't have. And he managed to give us that academic insight into microcredit scoring, where when I blended that knowledge of academia with my credit and risk people, it worked really well because they're coming from two completely different angles. And we managed to develop an internal scorecard which was very positive. There was, as I said, when training for branch managers, potentially there was a little bit of miscommunication, both from my end and also from potentially microfinance's end, because what happened was we were looking into training potentially branch managers in small lending. I'm not denying the fact that they didn't need it. I think they did need it. But what happened was that the people who were receiving the training were people who have been in banking for potentially 10 plus 15 years. And the trainer we chose was good technically, but he didn't have that depth of experience that potentially the audience had. So I found myself in a position where I had an audience who was very experienced in all lending, not micro-lending. And I had a trainer who was very good in micro-lending, but didn't have potentially the depth of knowledge in lending. So basically, as much as I wished that training was delivered to the level I wished it, the reception from the audience was not as positive as I wished it to be. So from that point of view, just a lesson learned is, if you are given a CV of a particular person and you have a small question mark on it, because this was my situation. I was given a CV of a person, I was pressed for time, and I needed to take a decision. And I had a small question mark on the level of experience, but I myself told microfinance, go ahead, we shall use this trainer. In hindsight, I should have held back there. If you're not 100% happy with the trainer, ask for another one. That is my fault, and I take full responsibility for that decision, because I took that decision. But in hindsight, my lesson learned from that is, if you have a small question mark on the trainer, don't accept it. Wait, it doesn't matter. I know you're going to have time ticking on your backs to make sure you deliver it. So you're going to be pressed for time. But take due consideration. We took due consideration of the first one because we had the time. This was in September. But then when time started ticking, we didn't have the time, and I took that decision. So in hindsight, give it the due consideration. I must admit, in this context, microfinance was very, very flexible. in making sure that our needs were addressed. And actually to that effect, we actually focused a little bit more time on the scorecard and got the desired results. So overall, it was a very positive experience from a capacity building point of view. So since none of you stopped me while I was presenting, have you got any questions? That's positive. That was very clear. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
Just maybe one comment. Thank you very much for the positive feedback. That's very nice to hear. And I understand also that for banks, we ask a lot of information to be able to issue the rating, because as we presented this morning with Aldo, a rating implies cross checks, and indeed we need to double check what we will write in the reports. But what we strive to do also for all these assessments and ratings is to adapt the information request to the size of the institution. So of course, depending on your size, the request will be adapted as the preparation phase is going. So basically when we send you a list of information, you just have to tell us, we don't have that. We don't want you to create it. So a bank, of course, has a lot of information, so it's a quite heavy process. But for small organizations, it should be quite lighter.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
After this process, actually two questions. After the process, what was okay, you show us your, your assessment, how you consider this process, but this was also the management of the bank was also satisfied with this. This is the first question. The second question is, what does Banco Valletta thinks now about microfinance, microcredit? There was a change in your consideration of this finance tool. There was perhaps an understanding that this can become a business segment for the bank. What was the outcome internally in the bank after this process?
So, with respect to your first question, yes, the reception from management was very positive for the whole exercise. And obviously, to be honest, the way forward now for me internally is to implement the scorecard through the branch network. So that is my first challenge. I need to be able to implement the scorecard that was developed under Jasmine through the branch network. I'm based here in Brussels and also commuting down to Malta, so that would be very difficult for me to do. So basically it would be my credit people who would be taking that on. The way I'm thinking of doing it within the bank is through the development of a product. The development of a specific product, specifically focused on micro-lending, that will then use the scorecard methodology that we've developed to actually implement it through the bank and to SMEs specifically. At the end of the day, my success here of me being in Brussels is that I manage to channel certain funding to enterprises. If I don't manage, I have failed. It's very simple. So basically my idea of implementing it internally is that we look into a risk-sharing financing mechanism which is EU funded, because you need the risk-sharing element to be able to implement the scorecard internally, specifically on microcredits. So I think the fact that bank management has accepted the idea of going down and seeking the development of a product in this area is testament to the fact that yes, they are looking at this business segment. Will I tell you, will it become a business model for the bank? Let's implement, if we are successful, the scheme internally, and over 2-3 years, once we implement it, we see the results and see the implementation of the scorecard on the ground, and be able to tell you that my management is convinced of going ahead and making this bigger, or keeping it as an internal process within the bank as we currently already do. So I would need to see over the next 2 years if I manage to implement the scheme and the scorecard internally through the branch network. The success of it is not that I'm doing it or I believe in it. The success of it is when I will have my branch managers and potentially loan officers running the scorecard on small lending as a routine practice through the bank. There I tell you I have been successful. But I think it will take me potentially another 2 years to be able to operate it through the system. So I look forward to answering you even more positively in a year or two's time.
Maybe we can go to the next presentation.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Parlerò in italiano.
Mi scusi, sorry, Mr. Brian, just I would like to express you one point. We have seen before the Bank of Valletta, that as you have seen, Bank of Valletta received Jasmine technical assistance before applying for any microcredit opportunities under EU schemes. In this case, BCCM received Jasmine technical assistance after receiving some funding for EPMF. So this, so considering these two aspects is quite interesting. So I will leave Mr. Via to do his presentation.
Grazie. Io mi chiamo Federico Bria, sono il segretario generale della Banca di Credito Cooperativo Mediocrati. Come giustamente e correttamente diceva il dottor Aguglia, noi siamo arrivati a Jasmine dopo aver avuto il finanziamento per Progress, quindi lo strumento che abbiamo utilizzato in precedenza. Però devo dire, vi devo parlare anche di un'altra cosa, cioè della differenza ancora che noi abbiamo, mi sente? Rispetto alla definizione di banca. Noi ogni volta in Italia iniziamo le nostre presentazioni dicendo siamo una banca differente e immagino di dover spiegare ancora di più qui il motivo per il quale siamo una banca differente. La mia nasce più di 100 anni fa in provincia di Cosenza, ma ci arriverò dopo. Siamo tante piccole banche esistenti in Italia, ma in realtà tutte quante siamo federate all'interno di una rete che vede il proprio riferimento in Federcasse. Sono quasi 400 le banche di credito cooperativo in Italia che raggruppano oltre 1.100.000 soci. Siamo veramente tanti e siamo presenti in tutte le regioni italiane. Abbiamo oltre 4.400 filiali. Siamo una banca, ma siamo innanzitutto una cooperativa ed una cooperativa a carattere mutualistico. Che cosa vuol dire? Innanzitutto per poter aprire una banca di credito cooperativo bisogna avere perlomeno 200 soci. Questi soci, a prescindere dal numero delle azioni che possiedono, possono intervenire nella vita della banca esprimendo semplicemente un voto e in ogni caso non possono avere azioni per più di 50.000 euro. Questa è la parte cooperativa. La parte mutualistica è ancora più significativa, diciamo così, perché innanzitutto noi abbiamo per legge l'obbligo di impegnare più del 50% delle nostre risorse nei confronti dei nostri soci. Il resto possiamo farlo all'interno del territorio di riferimento, ma soprattutto noi non abbiamo come finalità gli utili. E questo, entrando in un sistema bancario, comincia a non essere di immediata percezione, diciamo così. L'utile netto che noi produciamo ogni anno deve obbligatoriamente andare per il 70%, almeno per il 70%, a riserva legale, quindi a patrimonio. Noi produciamo utili e la cosa ci serve per irrobustire il nostro patrimonio. Una restante parte minimo del 3% deve essere invece erogata nei confronti di soggetti mutualistici, fondi mutualistici e per lo sviluppo della cooperazione. L'ultima parte, quella restante, che non può essere superiore al 27%, non può comunque essere distribuita ai soci o agli amministratori, ma deve comunque essere impiegata in attività di beneficenza o per scopi mutualistici. All'interno del sistema bancario italiano le BCC sono altamente capitalizzate. La media nazionale del nostro Tier 1 ratio era nel 2012 del 14,3%. Non abbiamo derivati nel nostro portafoglio, a meno di non considerare quelli di protezione. Nel nostro portafoglio invece c'è moltissimo sostegno all'economia locale. Il 22% è per attività di artigianato, poi per l'agricoltura, le microimprese e il terzo settore. Questi sono i nostri principali clienti, diciamo così. Ma veniamo alla mia banca, Banca di Credito Cooperativo Mediocrati. Dicevo, siamo 400 in Italia, ognuna di noi ha un proprio territorio di riferimento. La mia è in Calabria, quindi Italia meridionale. In Calabria ci sono attive in questo momento 14 BCC con 85 filiali. Quelle che vedete in blu sono i comuni in cui la mia banca ha delle filiali, quelle in azzurro invece il nostro territorio di competenza. Dicevo, abbiamo 17 filiali, serviamo 74 comuni all'interno della provincia di Cosenza, il nostro centro direzionale è a Rende, nell'area urbana di Cosenza. Al 31 dicembre del 2012 i nostri soci erano 4.600 per 79.000 azioni circa, diciamo di media 17 azioni a testa, ma il socio che ha più azioni da noi ne ha 256, che significa lo 0,35%. Nell'ultimo anno i nostri clienti erano 42.500. Abbiamo ricevuto 3.300 domande di credito, ne abbiamo rigettate soltanto 43. Perché questo numero? Perché nel nostro modo di fare banca c'è una relazione molto stretta con il cliente e spesso accade che il direttore di filiale, piuttosto che l'operatore dello sportello, dica direttamente a chi ha intenzione di presentare una domanda che non ci sono le caratteristiche per ottenere quel prestito. E quindi ecco il motivo per il quale i prestiti rifiutati sono così pochi, perché in realtà molte sono le domande che non arrivano proprio. Come vedete la media dei prestiti che diamo è già simile ad un microcredito, siamo su poco oltre i 40.000 euro. Questo mi permette di dire anche un'altra cosa, che dicevo prima, la mia banca ha più di 100 anni, ma noi siamo nati usando il microcredito, siamo nati da operai e contadini che si sono messi insieme e si scambiavano il credito semplicemente sostenendosi a vicenda, quindi senza stipulare nessun contratto. Quando nel 2006 hanno dato il premio Nobel a Yunus, noi ci siamo detti, sai che novità, noi lo stiamo facendo da tanto tempo. Poi però abbiamo studiato questo modello ed effettivamente ci siamo resi conto che eravamo da diversi anni molto orientati sulla parte bancaria e ora vi spiego perché. Intanto qualche altro dato: nel 2012 i nostri dipendenti sono 124, l'utile che abbiamo realizzato è stato di poco superiore al milione, il patrimonio è di 66 milioni di euro e i depositi sono di 492 milioni di euro. Quando consideriamo il cost income ratio, vi ho messo tutte e due le percentuali, Perché noi ovviamente seguiamo la regola, diciamo così, e quindi il nostro cost income è del 65-27%, ma poi però non possiamo dimenticare che il nostro essere cooperativa e mutua nello stesso tempo ci impone degli obblighi anche di legge che ci impediscono di muoverci come una normale banca, per cui il cost income ratio rettificato con le attività mutualistiche in realtà è del 62,92%. Un altro degli indici, il total capital ratio, noi siamo al 21%, e vediamo invece ai nostri progetti di microcredito. Dicevo, noi li facciamo, li abbiamo sempre fatti, abbiamo cominciato a studiare il microcredito moderno appunto dal 2006, da quando Yunus ha ricevuto il suo premio Nobel, e ci siamo resi conto della necessità di ritornare anche alle nostre origini. Abbiamo cominciato a pensare a alcuni progetti, questi sono quelli che attualmente sono operativi, le sigle sono Voglio Restare, il Seminatore, Fincalabra, Migrantes e Cosmo. Su che cosa ci siamo orientati principalmente? Sul fatto di comunque assistere persone anche in mancanza di capacità di dare garanzie. Lo abbiamo fatto creando noi stessi una rete di garanzie e in parte anche accollandoci il rischio rispetto alle persone, ai richiedenti. Per esempio, sia su Voglio Restare che sul Seminatore il tasso di interesse è un tasso fisso molto basso e noi comunque sia in un caso che nell'altro ci siamo rivolti al territorio per cercare soggetti che come noi fossero interessati a sostenere dei ragazzi o delle attività anche delle start-up. In un caso abbiamo trovato un Confidi che ha sottoscritto un accordo con noi e garantisce il 50% dei crediti. Nel secondo caso invece la Chiesa locale ha creato un fondo di garanzia e noi gli abbiamo applicato un moltiplicatore di 1 a 5 e quindi in questo modo riusciamo a dare i nostri prestiti. Non sto a spiegarvi quelle che sono le caratteristiche dei diversi prodotti, però vi dico che questi prodotti si integrano l'uno con l'altro e ci permettono di dare assistenza a 360 gradi veramente a tutte le persone che hanno bisogno di un microcredito. Quando siamo arrivati al microcredito europeo, cioè alla possibilità di presentare la domanda per ottenere un finanziamento, noi abbiamo scelto la formula del prestito senior per Progress, ci siamo detti che era importante intanto chiudere quel nostro portafogli di prodotti e poi avere anche una dotazione finanziaria che ci permettesse di essere in qualche misura di incidere in maniera seria sul territorio. Abbiamo contattato il FEI che, devo dire, quando ci chiedono di spiegare come è andato il nostro rapporto, come siamo arrivati a concludere il progetto Progress, io dico sempre che è stato tutto naturale, nel senso che abbiamo presentato questa domanda, siamo stati contattati, abbiamo dato delle risposte a quello che ci veniva chiesto e poi quello che abbiamo visto, cioè la due diligence, le diverse documentazioni richieste, ma in fin dei conti è stata una reciproca volontà di conoscersi. Ecco, noi per la prima volta ci aprivamo al di fuori del territorio e per la prima volta abbiamo percepito anche l'interesse a conoscere una realtà come la nostra, cioè di una banca, ma di una cooperativa, di una mutualità. Abbiamo chiamato il prodotto Cosmo, che è una parola composta dal nome della nostra città, Cosenza, e dalla necessità per tutti di muoversi, di trovare un modo per cercare soluzioni ai problemi attuali. Il FEI ci ha dato un fondo di 3 milioni di euro, noi abbiamo aggiunto un altro 1,5 milioni, quindi il portafoglio creato è di 4,5 milioni. Abbiamo sviluppato soprattutto la possibilità di assistere le microimprese, che per noi sono oltre il 90%, anzi forse di più, dei nostri clienti. Continuiamo anche sia con Cosmo che con gli altri prodotti a dare assistenza alle persone svantaggiate, diciamo così, non bancabili, per usare un'espressione nostra, ma in qualche modo la cosa che che ci premeva di più era quella di avere la forza necessaria per incidere. Fino al 31 di marzo Cosmo ha erogato 845.000 euro con 41 prestiti, per lo più indirizzati al settore dell'artigianato e del commercio. Sono 89 le persone che sono coinvolte, tra cui 36 donne. 13 persone sono laureate, il resto ha per lo più un diploma di scuola secondaria. Anche in questo caso sono pochissime le domande che abbiamo rigettato, ma per il motivo che vi spiegavo in precedenza. Noi siamo stati per diversi mesi l'unico soggetto in Italia che aveva avuto accesso a questi fondi e probabilmente, anzi sicuramente per questo motivo, abbiamo ricevuto moltissime richieste di informazioni da tutto il territorio nazionale. Naturalmente in quanto banca locale non abbiamo potuto dare risposte, però ci siamo resi sempre disponibili a dare informazioni, così come all'interno dello stesso mondo del credito cooperativo. Noi riceviamo sostegno da parte delle nostre BCC con sorelle in giro per l'Italia, direi quotidianamente. Lo stesso abbiamo fatto in questo caso con tutti coloro che erano in qualche modo interessati ad accedere a questo progetto. Quando ci siamo fermati a pensare sul microcredito che stavamo facendo, non potevamo non renderci conto che siamo molto sbilanciati sul settore sociale. Perché? Perché nella normalità noi assistiamo e diamo il credito, come dire, piccoli prestiti alla nostra clientela. In questo caso abbiamo unito tante altre caratteristiche che ci permettevano di far accedere in banca persone che invece altrimenti non sarebbero mai entrate. Però abbiamo cominciato, volevamo saperne di più, abbiamo cominciato ad organizzare noi stessi dei convegni al nostro interno, abbiamo chiamato degli esperti in giro per il paese, ma ci siamo resi conto che il problema non era soltanto nostro, era un problema italiano, un problema nazionale. Quindi quando c'è stata data l'opportunità di presentare domanda per Jasmine, siamo stati felicissimi, soprattutto perché pensavamo ad un confronto con realtà che fossero fuori dai confini nazionali e quindi con una diversa concezione del microcredito. E in effetti questo è stato per noi l'esperienza di Jasmine. Noi abbiamo nel primo anno abbiamo avuto l'assistenza tecnica da parte del Microfinance Center, mentre abbiamo chiesto una valutazione, non un rating, da parte di Microfinanza Rating. Il motivo è molto semplice, perché noi non abbiamo un rating, naturalmente. Fino a quest'anno ancora le leggi italiane non ci obbligano nemmeno ad avere a farci relazionare sui bilanci da soggetti esterni. Noi faremo per la prima volta quest'anno, in accordo peraltro con il FEI, ci faremo fare una rivisitazione del bilancio e sarà anche questa un passaggio in più che faremo veramente sul piano culturale. Comunque, quali erano, dicevo, le nostre aspettative? Sicuramente quella di confrontare la nostra concezione con quelle che c'erano invece nel resto d'Europa e poi anche verificare se queste concezioni diverse rispetto alla nostra avevano, perlomeno sul piano teorico, la possibilità di essere usate nel nostro territorio. Il primo corso è stato un corso di introduzione alla microfinanza e noi abbiamo chiesto che potessero partecipare a questo corso non soltanto i nostri dipendenti, ma anche coloro con i quali collaboriamo sul territorio per il microcredito, quindi i soggetti della chiesa locale, i rappresentanti dei confidi, anche un docente universitario che segue le nostre iniziative. Perché? Perché volevamo sapere proprio quello, cioè teoricamente cosa ne pensate di questo nuovo modo, di questo nuovo approccio? E devo dire che la risposta è stata generalmente positiva, cioè tutti quanti hanno avuto accesso a questa diversa idea dicendoci, beh sì, si può fare, proviamoci anche noi. Allora a quel punto siamo andati avanti, la seconda parte del training è stata invece focalizzata sui nostri dipendenti, direttori di filiale e personale dell'ufficio crediti, diciamo così. Quindi è stato un corso molto più tecnico e qui c'era un approccio invece decisamente scettico. Perché? Perché anche i nostri dipendenti erano bancari con molti anni di esperienza sulle spalle e con oramai la mentalità bancaria di garanzie, semplicemente garanzie reali. Quindi con la necessità di dover considerare il microcredito non più e non soltanto un altro prodotto, ma un prodotto in perdita che ci potevamo permettere semplicemente in quanto prodotto da distribuire per responsabilità sociale. Beh, anche loro però alla fine del corso, questo gruppo ha avuto la possibilità di non soltanto di dialogare e di ascoltare, ma anche di fare materialmente. Loro stanno per esempio adesso facendo un vero e proprio manuale che poi la banca adotterà al suo interno e la concezione è cambiata anche tra i nostri stessi dipendenti. A quel punto è cambiato anche l'atteggiamento del management, che da un punto di vista culturale era sicuramente orientato a dire sì, il microcredito va benissimo perché tanto noi siamo abituati da sempre a farlo, ma non era per niente pronto, anche il nostro management, a pensare ad uno sviluppo di una vera e propria linea di business. A questo punto invece è stato inserito all'interno del piano strategico lo sviluppo dello strumento del microcredito ed una nuova metodologia di uso dello strumento si è sicuramente affermata all'interno della nostra struttura. Siamo oggi, posso dire, siamo tutti convinti del fatto che nel prossimo futuro il microcredito per noi sarà uno strumento importante. D'altra parte i nostri clienti tipici sono clienti veramente sembrano tagliati per il microcredito, insomma questa nuova idea veramente ha sfondato porte aperte, diciamo così. Noi stiamo facendo, siamo quasi alla fine, stiamo facendo per il secondo anno l'esperienza di Jasmine e vorremmo concluderla in questo caso non soltanto con il manuale, quindi con un qualcosa di concreto che addirittura potrebbe essere usato non soltanto per il microcredito ma anche per la nostra normale attività, ma vorremmo anche concludere, sono sicuro che ci riusciremo con un vero e proprio pilota, un prodotto pilota da utilizzare perlomeno all'inizio in una delle nostre filiali per poi allargarlo all'interno di tutta quanta la nostra rete. Grazie e non so se sono stato lungo.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or remarks, please?
I'm really interested. Do you make money, or is this part of your business, microcredit, is it profitable for your bank and for your shareholders or stakeholders?
Se ho ben capito la domanda, noi siamo sicuri del fatto che possa essere interessante come strumento per la banca e per gli stakeholder. Ma innanzitutto gli stakeholder che noi abbiamo, partendo dai primi, cioè dai soci, non si aspettano un dividendo, perché noi non distribuiamo dividendi alla fine dell'anno. Lo dicevo all'inizio, essendo banca cooperativa e banca mutualistica, noi non abbiamo il fine di avere un utile da distribuire. Questo sicuramente è un gran vantaggio nel momento in cui si va a considerare la possibilità poi di usare lo strumento del microcredito a vantaggio del territorio. Il problema è che potrebbe essere semmai l'opposto, e cioè che il territorio, consapevole del fatto che noi non abbiamo l'utile come nostro riferimento, ci chieda di tenere tassi troppo bassi, addirittura insostenibili come quelli che stiamo usando in questo momento. Noi possiamo fare quello che stiamo facendo, ma come avete visto dai numeri in maniera poco significativa, mentre vorremmo utilizzare lo strumento del microcredito con numeri molto più alti e farne quindi uno strumento fondamentale per la banca e importante per il territorio. E credo che Jasmine da questo punto di vista ci stia servendo molto sul piano della crescita culturale. Info?
Sì, faccio la domanda in italiano. Non ho capito bene alla fine questo test pilota che volevi fare con quello che chiamavi il nuovo microcredito. Cosa vuol dire questo nuovo microcredito?
Un nuovo prodotto. Noi abbiamo il problema, che credo sia anche questo un problema italiano, non soltanto cosentino o calabrese. Chiamando il prodotto microcredito ci si aspetta, per quello che normalmente accade in Italia, per come è usato questo prodotto, ci si aspetta tassi di interesse molto bassi, oltre all'assenza di garanzie, oltre all'accesso alle persone svantaggiate. Noi vorremmo fare questo, ma vorremmo farlo anche mantenendo la stabilità della banca, anzi consentendo in qualche misura un minimo, magari minimo apporto comunque all'utile di fine anno. Per questo motivo stiamo pensando di cambiare nome al prodotto, del tipo, stiamo pensando per ora di usare la denominazione di credito veloce, però dobbiamo fare i conti su quanto veloci riusciamo ad essere poi nell'erogazione. Quindi, però questo è il senso, cioè stiamo pensando ad un nuovo prodotto da inserire nel nostro portafoglio.
Mister Bria, io vorrei leggermente dire qualcosa riguardo l'esperienza che noi come Feri abbiamo avuto quando siamo venuti in Calabria a conoscere la vostra banca, e quello che a noi proprio in relazione a quello che lei stava dicendo è emerso immediatamente, che la concezione della banca per questa banca di microcredito era una concezione di un prestito assistenziale che dovesse essere dato in condizioni di assistenza senza nessuna possibilità di diventare uno strumento sostenibile, ma la sua sostenibilità doveva essere raggiunta esclusivamente attraverso fondi pubblici o privati che venivano dati per poter coprire i costi della gestione di questo strumento. E da lì è nata l'idea di cercare di trasferire un concetto diverso di microcredito, qual è quello che tutti noi pensiamo si dovrebbe affermare in Europa, di uno strumento che diventi sostenibile, che non debba essere dipendente da aiuti pubblici o privati, che sia rivolto sicuramente ai soggetti svantaggiati, a coloro che hanno difficoltà ad accedere al credito, ma che nella sua costruzione di prodotto diventi poi sostenibile nel tempo e permetta quindi di poter essere di sostegno realmente. In questo senso, quello che io penso è che questa banca, andando attraverso Jasmine a voler implementare questo progetto ed espanderlo con proprie risorse, può veramente dare un sostegno al territorio, un territorio, forse molti di voi non lo sanno, ma il territorio della Calabria è un territorio molto difficile e anche è uno dei più poveri territori d'Italia, sono tra le regioni più povere dell'Italia, molto tormentato, con tassi di disoccupazione altissimi, specialmente tra i giovani. E sicuramente il poter avere una banca locale che comprenda la necessità di fare qualcosa che per il territorio attraverso appunto uno strumento di questo tipo è fondamentale per lo sviluppo del microcredito, a nostro parere. Quindi io veramente sono soddisfatto di quello che si sta facendo insieme e spero che questo progetto si sviluppi sempre di più.
Thanks. So, good morning, everybody. I am Francesco Greco. I'm program manager at the European Microfinance Network. In my brief presentation of this afternoon, I'm going to present you the role of the European Microfinance Network within the Jasmine initiative. I will briefly present you Yemen, and after I'm going to talk 10 minutes about the role of Yemen within the Jasmine initiative. So Yemen is the European Microfinance Network that was created in 2003. Currently we have 94 members from 17, not 21, sorry, European countries, from Eastern Europe and Western Europe. The mission of Yemen is to promote microfinance as a tool, as you can see, to fight social and economic exclusion. Yemen is a network composed by basically practitioner, microfinance providers, but also consultancy firms, NGOs, banks, which are associated to Yemen too. The main idea of our network is to help microfinance providers to grow and develop so that they can become sustainable and serve their clients and better the markets, the markets better excluded markets and depressed areas. How we support, so this is, if you want, the richness of Yemen is being composed by different realities, not only microfinance institutions. How we support our members, basically we have three activities, three actions, no more than activities. Capacity building activities, like for example, the workshops we are doing on specific topics and key issues for the development of microfinance in Europe. For example, the workshops that we are organizing within the framework of the Jasmine initiative, and we will see this in the slide just after this one. So capacity building activities, more or less workshops we are doing for our members. Networking and information exchange. We are currently publishing a lot of publications, researches on different topics. Just for give you an example, the last one we published was regarding microfinance and active aging, for example. So information exchange, publication and researches, which are available on our website, but also networking through our annual conference. By the way, the annual conference, this is maybe the most important event of Yemen. The next one is going to be in Stockholm in 1 month, so the 25th and 26th of June. The annual conference is the ideal, if you want, setting where exchange ideas. Because at the end of the day, Yemen is exchanging ideas, exchanging practices, and put people in contact. The third action is advocacy with EU institutions and national governments. We have the possibility, being based also in Brussels, to exchange with the European institutions with the scope of, let's say, try to give some advice from the field for putting in place policies which could be advantageous, which could strengthen the sector and strengthen our members and microfinance in general. So set up policy to overcome difficulties in the microfinance market and imperfection on the microfinance market. Jasmine and Yemen. So as you know very well shown now, Jasmine is composed by three main actions. The first one, the institutional assessment rating done by Planet and Microfinance rating. After, on the basis of this, we have the the training, from the Microfinance Center. And the third action is Microfinance Development Services, which does mean workshops and help desk. EMN was chosen by EIF to implement this third action, so the workshops and the help desk. What does it mean? Regarding the workshops, we need to organize 10 specialized workshops during 2013 on the different issues, as you can see here. The point of organizing this workshop is, again, try to put in contact people, give them some advice, the opportunity also to exchange and to know the best practices on the key drivers, on what we expect could be the key drivers for the development of microfinance in Europe. Just to give you a more practical example, here you can see the list of the 10 workshops we will have in 2013. The workshops are free of charge and free of access, so everyone can access. At each workshops we are looking forward to associate normally 1 or 2 MFIs and 1 expert or 1 institutional, which could give an overview, a general overview on the topic. At the same time, having the MFIs as testimonials could give us the possibility to know better the best practices on the topic. Just to give you a practical example, the first one of 2013 was the workshop done in Palma. In the occasion, this is another particularity of the Jasmine workshop, in the framework of the FEBEA annual conference. FEBEA is the European Federation of Ethical and Alternative Banks. The main idea of this workshop was to put in contact 2 worlds which can be seen, let's say, very, very far from each other. At the end of the day, we can see that talking about funding or talking about, for example, downscaling, as we have seen in the experience from the previous speakers, could be for sure some issues to find a cooperation of intent from banks and the microfinance. Regarding this topic, we will double this workshop normally on the next 6 months. So if you want to participate, for sure you can. And if you think that you could be involved more actively in this workshop, don't hesitate to contact us. You can see this is quite interesting because it's the new. The new one, the 3 workshops, so the one regarding outreach towards specific target groups, the one regarding raising funds and attracting investment, and another one on implementing the European Code of Good Conduct, we will be done during our annual conference in Stockholm. Just to give, I want just to spend 2 minutes more on the one regarding implementing the European Code of Good Conduct, because this is not a traditional workshop if you want. During our one, thanks to flexibility of the European Commission and the EIF, during our annual conference we will have the opportunity to host 2 experts on this topic for 2 days. These experts, they are going to be available for setting up a B2B meeting in order to help out MFI which are now implementing or try to implement in the Code of Good Conduct to do it. So the possibility, the practical possibility of having have some advice, some tips, some practical tips, because we know very well that as Isabel told us before, the European Code of Good Conduct is a key driver for the development of microfinance, but at the same time we need, maybe, this was the point of EMN, we need some coaching, some support, some practical support to help out MFIs to implement this tool. This is more or less the workshop we are organizing. So in the framework in 2013, the framework of the Jasmine initiative. The Jasmine help desk. Jasmine help desk is the other tool we are managing on the behalf of EIF in the framework of the initiative. The Jasmine Help Desk is a web-based, as also Isabel said before, a web-based platform, professional and free of charge, which provides tailored answer to all individuals, micro-entrepreneurs, MFIs, who want to post on this website, on this platform, their question regarding a specific topic on microfinance. What does it mean, a specific topic? Just to give you an example, here you can see the results of Jasmine in 2012. As you can see, the majority of questions were related to other programs, supporting programs from European institutions. We have normally MFIs that want to know how they can access, for example, to Progress Microfinance. Other MFIs wanting to know how they can access to Jasmine, if they can access to Jasmine. But we have also people, entrepreneurs, that want to know where they can ask for a loan in the region, and they can ask clearly on the help desk when I can find a loan, and we are providing an answer. So, knowing that, for example, the entrepreneur is based in Paris, we can give him the list of microfinance institutions based in Paris or in France, and in this way, the person may find an answer. We have also other questions regarding, for example, coming from the field of research, question regarding the, I don't know, social performance, for example, social performance in Europe regarding microfinance, for sure. So just to give you some example, the concept of the main idea of the help desk is to try to promote the concept of microfinance in Europe, and at the same time help out practically MFIs to access to European program, but also to improve their process. Because if an MFI have a specific question on, I don't know, the information system, the MIS, or the credit risk management, this MFI can ask the question for sure on the help desk, just posting the question on this template, on this platform. You can see clearly the web link at the bottom of this page. We are providing not only EMN for sure, but we are collaborating with two consultancy firms in Europe, from Eastern Europe and Western Europe, in order truly to give out, provide tailored answers and kind of, if you want, technical assistance to institutions and individuals. This is more or less on the participation, let's say, of Yemen in the Jasmine initiative. Is important to present you this because for sure you can have the possibility to participate with us, and I hope we will have the opportunity to collaborate together in order, for example, to do some workshop as testimonial or as participant. But I want also ask to you your support in order to promote the help desk, because the help desk is truly a powerful tool. Now we are in a process of promoting this help desk in order to have more and more direct beneficiaries for two main reasons. The first one is develop the concept of microfinance in Europe, and the first one is develop microfinance sector in Europe. For me, that's all. Thanks for your attention. Don't forget our annual conference, just a little parenthesis of advertising. We will have our annual conference on the 24th and 25th, sorry, on 25th and 26th of June. The main issues is going to be linked to innovative pathways for European microfinance. Thanks for your attention. Maybe some question? Yeah.
Yes, can I have a question?
Yeah.
Well, because I'm working with MFIs all over Europe, so I'm interested whether the help desk can really provide information specific to countries. Because I know the West, I know the consultancies that you work with, but are they really aware of the realities in countries they don't come from? So, like for instance, would they know specifically about, I don't know, Italy or Calabria or I don't know, Poland, for instance?
Yeah. Basically, we are not answering directly, not only directly to the question posted on the chat. We have, we have the support of Euron, consultancy services from Romania, and from MSA from Germany. Euron, let's say, is helping us answering to questions coming from the Western Europe, say even if Western Europe Eastern Europe, sorry, is huge, let's say. Same thing for Germany, for FSA Jung, for the other part of Europe. Until now, frankly speaking, people were quite satisfied. Let's say clients, the beneficiaries of the help desk were quite satisfied. For sure, we are trying to improve day by day this, the quality of the answer. But in my experience until now, I could say that yeah, they were. I mean, all clients were quite satisfied. They sent also some email, asking us more information. And saying that it was quite a good services. In this sense, I was saying before that the help desk is a powerful tool, but for sure, as any other tool, we need to improve it.
Okay, so you're saying that you're having information country specific, because this was
the country specific from the consultancy experience. Sorry. Country specific, no, in the sense that. As I said, is Euron, for example, from Eastern Europe, giving the answer for each country. We can, unfortunately, until now, we cannot cover any countries with one consultant per countries.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
Because because this is a very valuable. I understand the meaning of this tool, but in order to encourage somebody to use it, I want to understand. Thank you.
Is help desk really accepted, or do the people really know about, on the one hand, on the customer side, and on the other hand, on the MFI sides in Europe? So just give us an idea, how many questions do you received in 2012 from customers and from providers, just over the sum?
Yeah, I don't have this information. I'm sorry. Forever. I don't have this information. I can say to you that we received 80 questions in 2012, which is not so much. But from the side of, I don't know, roughly speaking, I could say that the majority, so the 60% of questions were coming from MFIs, okay, from practitioners. The rest was individuals and researchers, individuals, entrepreneurs, and researchers, for example. I think that, as I said before, until now, beneficiaries were quite satisfied. So until now, the consultants with which we are collaborating, they show, being quite key on the different questions. At the same time, you need to consider that the questions posted on the help desk sometimes are not so specific. Okay, sometimes even Yemen can give an answer to, for example, to an entrepreneur asking for a loan in Paris, just to give an example. We are promoting now the help desk, and I hope, by the way, and I will contact you as MFIs in the next months, also to ask your support, because the idea now is to let's say promote the help desk on different platforms, networks, targeting different target groups. For example, the DMI platform in Germany could be excellent for promoting the help desk. I don't know, putting a banner on the website. We want to do the same with RITMI in Italy, for example. So the idea is to enlarge a little bit and collaborate to promote this, to reinforce also this tool.
Regarding this, I would like to say two words. I think the help desk is really could become a very important tool inside the European microfinance community. This is, I think, the second year that has been developed. The problem that we have too few questions. That is the problem. And that is because maybe there is a need of promoting it a bit more. In order to make sure that this could continue in the future, we need to promote it, so even through the network, through each institution, through yourself, because having a central point where it's possible to receive information, microfinance, is something that can help everybody. And it's important that we promote it because it's something that if start to work well, if start to have a certain number of questions per month, per year, maybe it can become something that for the future to be renovated. But we need really to promote it.
Can I just add something on this? The help desk could be also very important in order, for example, to give out some answer for implementing the code of good conduct. This is another topic for the future. So, if you are an MFI and you are implementing the code and you have some questions, some problems, you can, without problem, post your question on the help desk. For sure, you will have not another consultant specialized on this topic, which we're gonna answer you. Thanks.
Can I have a question or comment? Because, well, I do appreciate the idea of having such a help desk and as a center of information, but how do you ensure consistency of answers, taking account that there are two independent consultancies from two different countries with different experience and different, not understanding maybe realities of other countries. So this is my big issue.
Can I?
Yes, indeed, there are two consultants that are working on that, and their selection is based on their experience in the market. It is also the questions and the answers that have been given, they are reused also for the future, and the answers that have been given. This is also an opportunity to build a knowledge and to share the information based on the questions that have been asked and that can be put later on the Jasmine online. But I think it's the same when you are giving training. You have trainers coming from different orientations, coming from different countries with different experiences, and that can be shared. It is to build the European Union market and knowledge inside the EU with different experience, and of course there are different legislations in the different countries, and I think the consultants are there to support each other and to consult themselves and to come back to the Commission when there is a question that they cannot answer and so on.
Okay, so you're saying there's a process there which is followed.
Yeah, it's just another. At the same time, I mean, you are talking about consistency, and I understand. I agree with you. At the same time, from the experience from the field, as I said before, clients until now were satisfied. I didn't, until now, I had one year experience in MN. I can remember one time having 2 questions on the same topic, for example. So frankly speaking, I think that, as Isabel said, consultants until now are doing a good job. At the same time, we are improving day by day this experience.
I mean, just to consolidate all the discussion, I think the help desk is in a pilot phase, and as such, we couldn't have one consultant from each country when we have 60 questions per year. I mean, it's something that is not possible, but there we need to promote. If it becomes, I mean, if we see that there will be more and more requests, then for sure, also I think there will be the intention also to put more resources from our side. But it's important to see if this tool works. Otherwise, my personal feeling is that it's a good opportunity. So maybe all together can contribute to let it fly. That is what I think.
Could you maybe say in which languages we can pose questions to the help? Is it only English? Or
It's only English.
In English.
It's only English, but it's only English. But you can, if you want, you can. I mean, template, let's say, is in English. But if you want, you can post your question in your language, in your mother tongue. Normally, 6 languages. Yeah, I'm sorry. There are 6 languages. There are 6 languages. I'm sorry. Yeah. Normally, all the questions, what I want to say, normally all the questions are coming from in English. The other question we are receiving question in Romanian, because Romanian, I'm sure, is a huge market in microfinance. But until now, the only question we received only in English and in Romanian, and I think 2 questions in French in 2012.
There are other 3 languages that are available, that are Italian, German, and Spanish.
Yeah. But still, the most used languages English are English. Yeah, please.
Regarding the workshop, I've got a couple of questions. How we can apply to organize the workshop, and how we can join a workshop organized by other institution, and how much it costs. I mean, the participation, and also to organize a workshop. Are you helping us with the funding or co-funding?
Yeah, normally the 10 workshops are decided at the beginning of the year with the EIF and European Commission and EMF for sure. Normally we launch, let's say, a call through our mailing list, EMN, asking from the field, asking MFIs the most important topic for them. So as an MFI in our network, you can propose a workshop, a topic. Most of the time, this is the way we are filling the list of 10 workshops. Regarding the promotion, the list is of the workshops is on our website, is public. At the same time, 1 month before, 1.5 months before every workshop, we send out an email through our mailing list, inviting people and members, sure, to participate in these workshops. regarding the question of supporting costs, yes, we support testimonials, MFIs, which want to be involved in the workshop. For instance, in the case of a CAF, we will have together the workshop on savings on next July, and a CAF is going to beneficiate also of one small fees for the, let's say, time consumed in the occasion of the workshop. We are providing also for sure travel and accommodation reimbursement.
Travel and accommodation for who?
For the testimonials.
Ah,
For the testimonial, yeah, I was referring to this.
On this day, on the other presentations or general remarks you want to do?
Sorry, quick question. All the presentations we saw today, is it possible to receive them by mail or as on your EMN network homepage published?
Yeah, they will be sent to you in the coming days.
Okay.
Then just a last remark, the Commission has launched an evaluation on Jasmine that has started recently. It is mainly focused on the organizations that already benefited from Jasmine in the past, and then also from the main actors, meaning EMN, MFC and so on, that were involved in the process. So it can be that you are contacted in the coming weeks to participate in this survey. So I encourage you very much to give your opinion, to give your ideas on things that could be changed in the technical assistance provided by Jasmine. If you have remarks or wishes of specific technical assistance that you think that the Commission should develop in the future, then please feel free to send your comments, your remarks, and you can also contact me immediately directly if you want to share some ideas. It's very important for us because it will help us to shape the future of the technical assistance that is provided by the Commission and then by the EAF as well. Well then, I think we can close this day. I'd like to thank you very much for your presence today. I hope you appreciate it, and I wish you all the best with the support provided by Jasmine in the coming months. And have a safe trip back and have a nice weekend to all of you. Bye.